Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. You're watching the Maverick News channel. And I'm here with my co-host.
Hey, it's good to be back. Happy Monday, everybody. Would be really nice if the weather would stop being so dreary.
I guess it depends on where you are. We have people all over the world. It's kind of raining where I am. Lots of stuff going on today. We have the situation in Ukraine where the Russian military, the Russian government, being accused of committing war crimes. So the information battle continues on that front for sure. What are your initial thoughts on that, Brendan?
Well, there's both sides of the coin here have some war crime stuff happening. We have shared for you already video of Russian prisoners of war basically chained up and getting shot in the leg, which is definitely not Geneva Convention stuff. So yeah, it's a weird thing. Supposedly that's being investigated, but the news cycle has already forgot about it at this point, I would say.
Yeah, actually, there were reports of even worse things than them being shot in the legs, the kneecaps being blown off while they were bound and tied, shot in the genitals, castrations, all kinds of terrible things. And now on the other side, we're seeing these accusations of horrific execution-style killings in the streets. The reality is war is a very horrific thing, and people are killed. That's what happens. And but there are rules even in war. And we just don't know what's really going on because we're not there. And then we get these media reports, and we know that there is propaganda on all sides. And I say all sides because it isn't just Russia and it isn't just Ukraine. It's the West. It's all these other countries involved in arming them, and other countries with their interests in there. Corruption. There's all this stuff going on. But we have other news going on today as well. We're going to be talking about vaccine mandates in Canada being reviewed. The federal government is required to do that, to review the way that they are imposing mandates on their employees, federal employees. So there's that issue. We also have the new Democratic Party in Ontario, the province of Ontario, Canada. They held a rally on the weekend.
On Sunday.
And we'll talk about the requirements that they had in place for people who wanted to attend that. Also, a huge investment in the auto industry again today in Canada, this time being announced by General Motors at two of their facilities, one in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada, and one in Ingersoll, just down the highway from there. And a big part of the focus with regard to that was an investment in, of course, electric vehicle production. So we will share that with you tonight as well. So that being said, where shall we start tonight? Brendan, do we have any video or anything to share on this Ukraine situation?
I haven't been able to locate anything of interest in that regard.
I'll find some. Just a moment.
Yeah. But much of the Ukraine, it looks like a disaster at this point in time. There's bombed out buildings, streets, neighborhoods. Things aren't looking good there. You know, with this whole scenario, it really makes me think about the expression "an eye for an eye makes the world go blind," and that's kind of what we have going on here at this point. I don't think that this is going to be. This has gone on a lot longer than I thought it ever would, and it just keeps escalating further and further. Volodymyr Zelensky, the prime minister or president of the Ukraine, had made a guest appearance at the Grammy Awards, I guess, on the weekend. Not that anybody cares about the Grammy Awards, but it just goes to show it's very clear that the left is really dug in on the Ukraine team. And there was even polls and statistics that were brought up, or an opinion poll in Canada, and it determined that majority of people who are vaccinated in Canada side with Ukraine overwhelmingly. I think it shows an interesting divide between the two different sides, where people who are not vaccinated ultimately are more skeptical, especially when it comes to news and the news trying to sell you narratives.
What do you think it shows? Do you think?
I think it shows that people who are not vaccinated are a lot more skeptical of news and narratives that the news tries to sell them, and they don't side with them very easily.
I think it's pretty, you know what it is, man? It's like every single issue anymore, every single issue pretty much. You can draw a line, and you can put all the people who believe all this stuff over here and all the people who believe that stuff over there. Over here, you have all these people who are basically on the left. They're all the same people who watch CBC, CTV, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC. It's all the mainstream stuff. It's the people who just buy into all the mainstream crap, who don't really think, because they're just being bombarded with the regular information that they've always sort of been getting. They just go along to get along. They really just don't think. And it's just all these people on the left, and a lot of them are really not that engaged politically. They just go along with whatever the new thing is. That's what it is. That's simply what it is. And then there are people who are politically engaged on that side, but they're just like indoctrinated.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on. And then you've got other people on the other side who are dissenters. They don't buy it. They just don't. So it doesn't matter what the issues are. People pretty much line up on every single issue, right down the line, whether it's climate change, vaccination, mandatory vaccinations. You can divide the line, and it's pretty much right there. There are some minor exceptions to this, but even the issue of Ukraine, people on the other side of the line, the side of the line that we're on, they've woken up, and they know that anything that the mainstream media is saying has to be questioned. So to say that, there's not much nuance, I guess is what I'm saying there. You can pick an issue, even as it's just beginning in to emerge in the news cycle, and I can tell you how people are going to land on it right from the beginning. And it's pretty darn easy. It's extremely easy, because there are those who just suck it all up and just let it all sink into their numbskulls. And then there are other people who are like, I better think about this and don't just take it at face value. It was like it every time I'm in my bubble too, right? Just like everybody else. But this past weekend, I had to go out and engage with relatives, with other people that I know, some friends, outside my regular sphere. And it just becomes instantly apparent. And they think, a lot of these people they look at me like, even some people I love, and they look at me like I'm nuts. They don't want to talk to me. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to discuss anything. They just prefer to live in ignorance. In fact, someone very close to me said, I just don't want to know. Those were the exact words. I just don't want to know.
What was that regarding? Can you tell me?
It was regarding vaccinations.
Oh.
I just don't want to know.
I have family that are the same way. They know whatever it is that Justin Trudeau has spoon fed them, and they're the same way. They'll shut you down and they'll throw you out like yesterday's garbage.
Yeah. So let's start with this instead, Brendan. Let's start with this CBC report on the surge in COVID cases. The surge. Since we're kind of going down that road already, right? I did cue this up. So let's bring this in and let's just listen to it, check out the tone. I don't normally watch CBC. I knew instantly I haven't even watched this whole report, but I knew what it was going to be. I watched the first 15 seconds or so, and I knew right where it was going to go. Let's watch it and just analyze.
Everyone's tired, but here's the reality. COVID restrictions
here's the reality. They're going to tell you it's real.
Are lifting. The virus is surging.
The mandates are lifting. The virus is surging.
And hospitalizations are rising.
Is that true? Is it really true?
Everybody right now, I think, should still wear their mask and keep those layers of measures.
How did I know she was going to say that? There was another clip the other day from Dr. Theresa Tam saying that, what did the doctor say? Even though people were told, I don't want to misquote the good doctor, but even though people are confused because they were told that, you get the first shot and the second shot, and then you wouldn't need any more shots, and it was all supposed to end the pandemic and everything, and they're all confused because things haven't quite worked out the way that they thought they were going to work out. You should still continue to listen to what Dr. Tam says because, well, you just should.
New federal models reveal an expected but clear up.
Holy smokes! Did you look at the size of that gigantic spike?
I know, I'm terrified.
Look at the size of that giant line. Surging!
That's where I got COVID.
Cases. Of course, the hope is hospitalizations won't spike and COVID deaths will remain low. But doctors point out a high rate of Omicron cases and its new subvariant will lead to a new wave of patients.
Oh my God! Tell me it's not so!
I'm afraid it's so.
You won't see a lot of deaths, but it's still going to hammer our healthcare system.
Just stay the F home then, right? Is that what we're going to do again? We're going to go through that again?
I'm not going to stay home.
Are we going to get all the musicians to sing to us again? Just stay the F home?
If you just stay home.
And what did he say? Let's listen to this again. What did this dude say?
Still going to hammer our healthcare system.
Still going to hammer our healthcare system. There's not going to be a lot of death, he says. So it's, not, I guess it's not as deadly. Not that deadly. So you ain't going to die. But it's going to hammer the healthcare system. So because the healthcare system is inadequate, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to lock down, mask up, vaccinate, and not procrastinate. Go for the third, the fourth jab, and triple layer your mask and hunker down for the long haul because, well, how long are we supposed to wait for the government to give us an adequate healthcare system, something that can handle a rise in cases? Like, I'm sorry, but I think the problem here, the larger problem, is maybe a mismanaged healthcare system, which was probably at the root of part of the problem to begin with. Maybe if it
Absolutely.
was properly managed, we wouldn't have a healthcare system that's being hammered and unable to handle the caseload. And through all of this, through all the money they spent on giving people CERB and compensating
Plexiglass.
businesses and plexiglass and handing out
Stickers.
hundreds of millions of billions of however many dollars they spent bailing out big corporations through the pandemic and printing more money. Instead of doing all of that, through any of it, did they invest in new beds? Is there any more capacity in the healthcare system? Is there any? Have they even talked about it? No.
They never talk about it.
I don't think even a single province in Canada, and I don't even know if in the U.S. they've increased capacity in any states or if they've addressed these issues. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about continuing to do the same stupid things over and over again and not really addressing some of the fundamental core issues here at all. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. They this story, of course, it's just it's filling everyone with fear again, right? Let's listen some more.
Though over 80% of Canada's population is now vaccinated, millions aren't. The unvaccinated continue to have the highest
Really?
Holy smokes.
Really?
hospitalization rates.
The unvaccinated continue to have the highest hospitalization rate?
Here we go, folks. And you know what? I called this on
Followed
this
by
very program. I called this. I said, last year, the students in Ontario did not return back to school after Easter. This is the same story, same thing they fed us before, and now they're stoking the divide against the vaccinated and unvaccinated again.
Those who've had 2 shots, and data shows 3 doses further reduces your chances of ending up in a hospital.
Oh, well. Why did we need 3 shots?
I don't know, but everybody says that line after they get COVID. Well, thank God I took my medicine 3 times because it would have been so much worse. These are the same people.
Clearly, this is not gone, but in many people's minds, it's gone, or we want it to be gone, and therefore we're moving on.
Provinces are winding down testing and case reporting.
I think people just assume, okay, well, the government says it's okay, so COVID's pretty much gone.
Lindsay Arseny couldn't believe how quickly her children and husband became infected after restrictions lifted.
We've been good for 2 years.
Them unvaccinated people started walking around without their masks on. Next thing you know, we all got the COVID.
And all of a sudden we have, household full of COVID.
Experts insist immunity from vaccines and infections is protective, but it will wane.
Progress will not be linear, and that there will likely be more bumps along the way, including resurgence in cases this spring and likely also in the fall and winter.
Health officials say their goal is to maintain a balance. The virus is still here and variants remain a wild card, but vaccines and masking can still help Canadians safely ride out this wave. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
You buy that?
Well, I've already had it. I'm good. I got me some of that natural immunity.
Oh, really? Well,
Yep.
It ain't good enough, dude. Dr. Tam says you got to get your jab because
No
it
thanks.
just ain't good enough. Ain't good enough. Gotta get
Well,
it. Gotta get it.
I think it's very important to note the tone of this. This is very fear-driven.
Are you fearful now?
I'm not afraid, but
You're not. I'm petrified.
you're petrified.
I'm petrified.
I don't know. You don't seem very petrified.
Oh, I'm scared. I'm quaking in my boots because what's her name there? That reporter there, that CBC type. She filled me full of my fear.
You know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of what the government's going to do. Which we know exactly what the government is capable of doing, and we know they will do it again. Like I said, the students did not go back to school in Ontario after March, after Easter break. This is the same stuff playing out as it did before, and this is very important to show everybody. And maybe they've already seen it before, or maybe they haven't. Either way, it's worth sharing. It is a article from City News, and it discusses surgeries postponed due to severe flu cases overwhelming Toronto ICU. And that was in 2018. So
Yeah.
that's the evidence that says Go ahead.
So I ask you again, what's changed since 2018? What have they increased the capacity? Have they said, hey, maybe we have a problem here. Maybe we need more capacity. Maybe more doctors, or maybe more beds, or maybe more of something. But what have they done to address it since 2018?
Well, here's the we always talk about diversity in North America right now, but we never talk about being able to handle a diversity of problems, which your healthcare system should be designed absolutely to handle a wide range of problems. That means understanding that viruses fluctuate during certain times of year, and why are we still doing this? And it all goes back to socialized medicine. That if you have socialized medicine, they're going to use it to control your life. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Mr. Ford in Ontario did something after Easter break, or even before Easter break, or maybe school gets canceled again. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. Nonetheless, if the government's going to try and curtail this with some kind of mandate, that is already in their back pocket and ready to be used.
And I'm trying to get a graphic made up here just on the fly, because I want to show you the caseload for Canada. And it's just going to take me a minute here. What did I call that? Well, here, maybe I'll just bring up the page. It's just going to take me too long to try and do this. Does anybody look at Worldometer out there? These are the Canadian stats, right? Daily on COVID. So let's just share this. Here it is. So there's the daily new cases. And I'm sorry I can't zoom in using the program we have here. But you can see, so this is back in 2020. Well, daily new cases started out right in March, 665, 1,300, 1,200, 1,300. Then you get into the November 2020, December, and you get this rise, right? April, May, June, the fall. So this is 2021. This is March here where I'm at of 2021, last year, 2,812. So in the beginning, no vaccine, right? And we had this kind of caseload. Remember how everybody was scared to death? And we had started out with about 600 a day, 500, went up to like 1,700. And when did the first vaccines hit?
Oh, like December, January last year.
2021?
Yeah. Let's go January.
Was it January 2021?
Yeah, let's just, for the sake of argument, let's use that as the magic number.
So the vaccines hit, say, around January, and then you've got daily caseloads of 7,500. This is national, okay, Canada. And these are government numbers fed into Worldometer. So from 500, 600, 1,500, it peaked up around 2,000 in, March, April, mid-April, May. And then by the time we get to January and the vaccines hit, then you're into like 7,000, 6,000 a day, 9,000. These are caseloads. And then it dips a bit, and then we get back into April the spring, mid-spring, and 6,000, 7,000, 9,000, 7,000. Then summer, of course, the warm weather, people go outside, and you get a lot less. But when the vaccines are being administered, we're seeing a huge surge. Then into the fall. And now we're getting into, late fall, heading into the winter of 2021. And when did the second round of vaccines come along? That would have been
that
late
would have
fall,
been after
21?
that would have been after the election, because they would have had the closures in restaurants in Canada. So
Yeah.
that would
So
have
we were
been
late
October.
fall, October, November. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you get the second
mid-September.
wave of vaccinations.
Yeah.
And then we're getting into look at the spike we get by the time we get to the winter now. And this is now we got to a point where apparently we had 70, 80% compliance, right?
Yeah.
How can you have 70 or 80% of the eligible population vaccinated and get more caseload? How can that be if it's working? I'm just asking a question. Because for me, the numbers don't seem to jive. But I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying it's not a great thing that works fantastic or anything. I'm just asking a question. How can you go from no vaccine and 500 to 1,000 to 1,500 a day caseload back in 2020 to, with people all double jabbed up, 70, 80, they're even saying 90% compliance now, right?
Yeah.
And now we're into here's a good one, 45,000 a day in January of this year. And in January, we had a lot of people triple jabbed. Now we're January 11th, January 23rd, 26,000. It starts to come back down. But we're still 13,000, 14,000, 23,000, 28,000. How can you have 80, 90% of the eligible population vaccinated and get even more? If it's working, shouldn't it be going down? Shouldn't you be getting less? Isn't that the idea?
That is the idea, but you have to remember that the narrative on that changed.
What was the narrative change?
Well, the narrative was if you take your medicine, all your doses of medicine, then you won't get sick and you won't end up in the hospital and you won't die. And then it changed from that to,
okay,
actually, you do get sick.
Now here's another question for you though, Brendan. So in the beginning, nobody was vaccinated. We were all unvaxxed, right? So everybody was unvaccinated that was getting sick and or dying. And now if you have 90% of the population, so your sample size is say you had 100 people and 9 out of 10 were vaccinated. 9 out of every 10 are now vaccinated. So only one person out of 10, if you have a group of 10, is unvaccinated. One person is unvaccinated. Or for that matter, let's say, just for the sake of argument, let's say it's 80% and you got 2. And then you have a surge and you have I don't know, what's the percentage increase in cases when you go from, even a year prior, say from 8,000 to, let's just go mildly here, say 30,000 or 28,000. So what? Triple the number, quadruple the number of cases you had before. How can you, on a sample size, do you even have enough unvaccinated people to make up the most people going into the hospitals, to make up the most people getting infected? How can that even be possible? I don't think it's mathematically possible for that to be the case, is it?
Well,
and it's been consistently that way, apparently. Like somehow they just keep finding new unvaccinated people to keep getting sick in order to make up enough numbers to outnumber all the vaccinated people that are still getting sick but being admitted to hospital. But I don't understand how they can keep finding all these unvaccinated people when I just read a story that said that of all the unvaccinated, of all the federal employees out there, it's only 0.3% that are unvaccinated, because of course everybody wants to get vaccinated and everybody loves to get vaccinated because it's such a lovely, wonderful thing to be vaccinated and to be part of the whole vaccinated club. So it's only 0.3%, but of course all the majority of the people who are in the hospital and dying, the vast majority are unvaccinated. I'm just having trouble doing the math, but I guess
I wish I could tell you. I don't think this is supposed to make sense. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. They said, "Oh, at first, you're not going to get sick," and then, then you won't get hospitalized and die.
Okay, so let's look at the deaths then, because everybody's like cases. So I'm just asking questions. And maybe we should get Dr. Tam on here to explain further, because, or maybe get some medical officer of health on. But look at the graph on the daily deaths, because I'm having a hard time understanding this too. So no vaccinations at the beginning of 2020, and you have 24 to begin, and then 145, 174, 159, 131, 168. This is all around March, April of 2020. Let's fast forward. Here's December. So here's the next big wave, right? This is March. Yeah. So you get back into the winter of 2020 and early 2021. This is when now the vaccinations start, right? And then we're getting into 254, 132, 157. Looks pretty much the same to me. In fact, it's actually higher. You see the highest spike that time was 254 deaths nationally in Canada. So these are Canadian numbers. And the U.S. is broken down by state. So the two waves here look pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all drips down and it seems to calm down a bit. But then they start getting into the third, this would be the second wave of, I can't remember. Where's the second wave start of vaccinations?
Ooh, it's hard for me to say.
Well, it was kind of
the last fall.
Yeah, it was spread out. So late summer, fall, second wave, 2021. So then even in the warm weather, so you've got more deaths here in like the fall of 2021 than you had in the fall of 2020, where you had in the fall of 2020 like 8, 7, 9, 7. It looked like it was pretty much over, or it seemed to be. But then we got vaccinations and gigantic spikes. It's a good thing everybody got vaxxed. Imagine how bad it would have been, Brendan, if people hadn't been vaccinated. My God. If no vaccinations, look, can you imagine the deaths? Can you imagine? And then, way over here, we get into 2020, and it's like, okay, so fall of 2021, 55, 39, 45, 67, 61, 29, 68. Fall of 2020, 7, 10, 8. Where is that? Is there more or less after you get into the second wave of vax in the fall of 2021? Oh, it looks like more. But can you imagine how many people would have died if they hadn't vaxxed all those people? Good thing we vaxxed them all. Good thing they got double jabbed. Good thing we got the triple jabs going on now, because look where we're at now, man. Here we are, January, February 2022. How many people dying now? 149, 74, 142, 155, 193, 97, 138, 37, 103, 135. Wow. Could you imagine how many people would be dying right now if we didn't have them all triple and quadruple jabbed?
Yeah.
I'm so grateful because it's obviously working so well. Because look at the waves. See how they look very much the same?
Yes.
Imagine how bad it would have been, Brendan, if we hadn't double, triple, quadruple jabbed everybody, because we're at like 90% compliance. And if it was, you know what the problem is, though? You know what the problem is, Brendan? It's all those unclean, unvaccinated people. If they weren't all out there running around loose, taking off their masks right now, if Doug Ford and all those other premiers weren't facing re-election, and if they would just make those people keep their masks on, then I wouldn't have to worry about going to the store. But they're going to kill us all, I think, is what's going to happen. It's all those unclean, unvaccinated people. A good friend of mine said that the reason he didn't get COVID is because he's got a thing. He puts it up over his face when he goes into a store. And he washes it at least once a week. So I do it too. I just do that. When I go around, I just do this. And then I feel much better. Because I know I'm not going to get it. You just have to do that. Like that. And then you're safe. 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 And I'm glad that the people in my life that I love went out and they've been triple jabbed now. I feel so much better. I know that they're safe now for sure.
Do you feel safer?
I do, Brendan. And just remember, Dr. Tam loves you and only wants the best for all of us. And we're all in it together. And let's just remember that if it wasn't for those unvaccinated people and those stupid bouncy castles, I just want to take something sharp and just puncture those damn bouncy castles.
Whoa. I go away for a weekend and this is what happens to you.
I've just had a change of heart, okay?
Okay.
Because I saw that CBC story and it just scared me.
It just opened your eyes. Why
It did. And now
You
I'm
see
not
the
awake anymore. I'm woke.
What are your pronouns now?
The. And it.
I I am not taking any more time off ever again. Look what you guys did to Rick. This is terrible.
I'm the it.
It. Look what you did to it.
I'm fine. I just don't want unvaccinated people anywhere near me anymore. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Now I know. They're so selfish.
Who, me?
No, the unvaccinated people.
Oh. Yep, I'm not taking
Brendan.
I can't take any more time off on the show. It's very apparent.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It is an experiment. So,
yeah, feeling better now.
yeah, okay. You got your booster. You're good.
I'm getting extras. I know a guy. I met a guy. He's not a friend. But he got, and this was like around when people were first getting jabbed. He got first, he went out and got the Chinese virus, the vaccine thing. He got the Chinese one. Then he came home because he was traveling, and he got vaxxed up with I think it was the Pfizer or the it was AstraZeneca. So he came home and got that one injected. So yeah, he got himself like a real what swamp water. Remember swamp water when you were a kid? You'd get all these different sodas and just dump them all different kinds into a glass and drink this mixture of different sodas, and you'd call it swamp water.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Well, same thing with the vaxes. Because remember, they said you got to stick to the one you're supposed to get, and then they said no, you can mix and match. It's okay. You get one of these, one of those, and get a Pfizer, and then double up with a Moderna, and you're good to go, baby.
Well, there was a man in India, and he claimed that he received 11 doses in Bihar State in India.
Yeah. 11
doses.
Well, okay.
The retired postman said that the jabs had helped him to get rid of aches and pains and stay healthy. He claimed he had not suffered any adverse effects. Mr. Mondale was finally stopped from taking what he claimed was the 12th jab at a camp last week. So I guess this guy just used to go to vaccination centers, and continue to get cranked.
Well, my hat goes off to him, Mr. Indian man who got 8 COVID jabs. I salute you for setting a good example for the rest of us. And there you go, folks, because he's paving the way, showing it is indeed entirely safe to get 8 COVID injections.
Actually, I feel this article was a part of the mass formation psychosis where they didn't report or investigate any of the adverse effects that this person would have from taking so many of them. There also isn't any follow-up articles, coincidentally, as well. This video is getting taken down. I could smell it.
I didn't intend to go down this road, really, but oh my, does anybody else out there see what I see in the graphs? That's my question.
I see it.
Yes.
I see it 100%. You take a look at, if you still have the graph up, if you could be so kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Okay, so if you take a look at the last big spike there, you can see it's doing the same thing. It's tapering off, and there's going to be another big rise. Well, a smaller rise. And it's going to do the same. Some people have said in the comment section that they feel that Doug Ford won't go for any shutdown measures because there's an election around the corner. But I doubt that would deter him because it's very apparent that his political opposition is going to be running on platforms for locking me down harder, daddy.
Yeah, daily new cases. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, look at the spike here. Like, cases, right? Just cases. And gigantic, ginormous explosion of cases. In January of 2022, 43,000. What was the peak here at that time? 55,000 new cases reported on January 10th of 2022.
How many people died that day?
That was January 10th?
Yeah.
January 10th. You'd normally get like a delay, right? Because you get new cases, and then you get the death after. So January 9th, 10th, so it's hard to get it in here. About 94 on the 11th. So right around 100 a day, 90 to 100 a day in that range. Around the 10th and 11th.
There's that 99.9% chance of survival.
But remember, all these, almost all of them, like 90% plus or whatever it is. I don't know, the vast majority anyway. All the unvaccinated, you had this huge explosion, because you had like 90% of the people vaxxed, but then only 10% of the population made up this gigantic surge in cases. Of course, that makes sense. I'm not a mathematician, but if they say it's so, then it must be, right? Because down here, right, anybody could get it. And then so that could be like, that's 100% sample size, everybody unvaccinated over here. And then over here, when 90% of the people are vaccinated, in some cases with 3 times they've been vaccinated, okay, it's not them. You can't blame them. No, it's all the unvaccinated people. They made up the 55,350 new cases. The vast majority unvaccinated. It's only that small percentage of the people that made up this gigantic, huge new spike in cases. It only makes sense. If it wasn't for all those filthy, unclean, unvaccinated people, we wouldn't have had that. We would have been done with this by now.
No, actually, I think we would have been done with this by now if we never had any lockdowns or anything of the such. This would be over.
Oh my God.
And that's why so many people are getting it now, because not so many people had it before.
Yeah.
Oops, did I say that on television?
What did you say? Don't say it again. Maybe say it again, but clarify. It kind of washed over me.
I said, I don't think as many people would have had it, and I'm not talking about your pronoun, if there was no government lockdowns. I think it would have been one of those things that if everybody would have gotten it, we would be in a much better place now at this point. And I think that's why cases are jumping so high now, because I don't think enough people have had it at this point. But the focus needs to be on people with comorbidities and people who are vulnerable. But as far as I'm concerned, people who are in a better health condition shouldn't really be worried. At least I wouldn't be.
Well,
I'm fine.
Well, see, but it's your own darn fault, because you didn't get vaxxed and you don't like masks. And if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have got it to begin with. So it's your own fault, and I don't care, and I think you deserve it, and you shouldn't be allowed to even have health care, and I hope you get COVID again and die.
I probably will.
Yeah. That's what I think. You don't deserve health care, and you don't deserve a job, and you don't deserve to go to the store. You shouldn't be allowed to go to a restaurant, and you shouldn't be able to go anywhere near anybody because you're unclean.
Ew. Yeah.
You unvaxxed varmint.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah, lock him up, says Patrick. Lock him up. I agree. Yeah, off to the concentration camp with you, pal. COVID camp for Brendan.
I do have a hard time concentrating, so.
Camara says, next thing is, did they injected you right away? I heard that's a right way and a wrong way. Masks are coming back, and you're 6 feet. Yeah, well, better 6 feet apart than 6 feet under. That's a good one, eh? They should have hired me to do their marketing.
Where did you come up with all this crap? Yeah, you could make a commercial for that right now and start selling it, because the next wave's coming.
Yeah, we're going to make T-shirts and sell them here. better 6 feet apart than 6 feet under.
Anybody want a 6 feet under shirt?
Oh, my.
That's a good point. We don't know because they wouldn't tell us the truth. It's all based on modeling and everything else, right? So
Yeah,
at the
Patrick
end of-
wants to lock me up now.
Yeah. I think they're all chamomile tea does magic. Does make you feel good.
And Frosty says they're going to take toilet paper away from you, too.
Oh. I think I have some liberal books sitting around that would be sufficient.
Yeah, I'm clear. Julie says I'm clearly unvaccinated. You know what? I know some pretty vaccinated people, and you know what they look like to me? Well, you ever see an extra from Night of the Living Dead?
Yes.
Jesus. Oh, well,
Well,
need
not
I
personally.
say more? I know a lot of people that have been triple jabbed, and they still got it.
Well, where do you think I got it from?
I know. I feel fine. I'm just fine, folks. I'm doing well.
I think you had too much excitement this weekend.
Obviously, it was my dad's birthday and my son's birthday this past weekend.
Uh-oh. They let you out of the cage.
Yeah. Yep. Angelica thinks I'm funny. I'm pretty weird. I know that. What else you want to talk about, Brendan?
So,
we have a limited amount of time because this channel is definitely coming down.
Yeah, it is. Well, so this should be concerning for us, that little CBC article there, because Ontario's opposition is...
Darcy says there's some truth to the zombie thing, too, and yes, there is. I know a lot of people have been triple jabbed, and they look like death warmed over. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a scientist, but I am me.
Yeah.
The it.
The it. So if I refuse to acknowledge your pronouns anymore, will that...
that's gonna trigger me for sure, pal.
Will you send me to Human Rights Court?
Or worse.
Or worse.
Yeah. I'm going to have you investigated by the RCMP guys that are going to Ukraine to investigate the war crimes. Same dudes.
Oh, dear.
I think they're the same guys that were beating the crap out of the truckers. Anyway, what do we have here?
Well, this is a email from the Andrea Horvath, the leader of the NDP for Ontario, which, why do they keep voting this lady in? I don't know. She has never won anything in her bloody life. And
well, she won her seat.
wow, that's about it. Anyway, somebody took this. It is a terrible screenshot, I must admit, but in either case, it says, major campaign announcement and rally with Andrea Horvath, Sunday, April 3rd, 2022. As you know, you had to RSVP in order to get the location for the event this weekend. So, first off, super secret event, and you're not allowed to go unless if you're in their club. The above information as only guests who RSVP will get these details. If you have friends or family who are interested in attending, we ask you to get them to RSVP using this link, blah, blah, blah. To attend, participants must RSVP to the event online to get the location and for contact tracing. We require all participants to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Although we are in an outdoor environment, masks are required for all who join. Masks will be available on site for those who did not bring their own. Hand sanitizer will also be available to everybody. So, look, this is very concerning because this is what Ontario is up against. We have two parties that will send you to Camp Concentrate if you don't comply with the rules, and it'll be a bane existence for people like myself and perhaps many people like you out there. And I'm quite worried about it, to be honest, because they're not letting this go at all.
No, they're not. No. They
And-
love it. They love it. They
Yeah.
absolutely love the masks. They love the vaccinations. And you know why? Because it forces people to comply so that they have to, they can tell. It's a club, a cult, if you want. Okay, I hate using that word, but it's like, who can we trust?
I don't. The
Who
shoe,
can we
if
trust?
the shoe fits, man, throw it on there. These people are a cult, and it's absolutely disturbing that we give them so much attention. Maybe we're giving it attention because we're concerned about this. This is somebody who could possibly be the next leader of Ontario, and we're going to basically be brought several steps backwards. I personally, I don't bloody trust. I don't trust any of these politicians, but I trust these ones a hell of a lot less. But this is where the problem is, that we're going to have 3 or 4 other parties vying that are going to be anti-lockdown. So there's no unity on the freedom movement front in Ontario whatsoever. It's going to be a divided election. And that means things could go a hell of a lot better for these guys because of that.
Yeah, I'm quite certain that we're in a lot of trouble in the province of Ontario for sure because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because as bad as Doug Ford, the Conservative Premier, has been, these other guys would be even worse. Ford is absolutely a fascist. Oh my, they're gonna haul me away to jail. They're certainly gonna shun me, that's for sure. He's been a terrible premier, very authoritarian, and yeah, Andrew Horwath, NDP, they get into power. Look out, baby, because the hammer's coming down, and it ain't gonna stop.
Yeah.
They love the masks. They're going to force it. They would probably strap people down and forcibly inject them. I wouldn't be surprised
Of course.
if it went that far.
Of course.
They are scary as all you know what. And I think we might end up with it because everybody hates Doug Ford. Nobody wants to vote for him. They can't wait to get him out. The Conservative alternatives are splintered and fighting among themselves.
Yes.
There's no unity. So what are we left with? Ford thinks he's going to get reelected. He's sadly mistaken. There's no freaking way.
I beg to differ, and I can explain that if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Ford is a great campaigner. He's very good at what he does when he campaigns. His track history is going to be bad for his time in office. I will admit that. But I think through his campaigning that he's going to do, he's going to probably say, oh, it's because of me that you're all safe and blah, 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 and whatever. But look, Ontario has a huge huge problem where all they do is vote for traditional colors. So it's as always going to come down to red and blue at the end of the day.
Or orange. We've had an NDP government here once.
Yeah, if anything, it'll be a coalition government between Liberal and NDP, which, shocker,
it could be an NDP majority for all we know.
I'm not calling it as such. I'm not
calling it. I'm just saying it could happen.
It could happen, but what I am going to say is I think that there's going to be a Conservative minority in Ontario. I don't think that a lot of these other parties coming into the fray, I don't think that they're going to see a whole lot of results. That's just me, and that's because of how divided it all is. So you're going to have freedom movement people voting Doug Ford, being like, well, that was crap, but what else am I going to vote for? And then the other ones are going to vote New Blue, Populist, and the Derek Sloan Party. They're squabbling amongst themselves, though, and it's a big mess. Yeah. But that's why Doug Ford, I think, will get a minority government, and he could lose that if the Liberal and NDP go into a coalition. But Doug Ford is very good at campaigning. He knows what he's doing in that regard.
It's a numbers game, dude. It ain't gonna happen. Can't happen because
it
Ford.
Happen.
It can't happen. He's not gonna win. He'll be destroyed. I would lay money on it because
actually, let's do it. I'll bet you $20.
You're on. And,
all right.
And since they've made online gambling legal in Ontario, apparently, as of I don't know today. Very recently, we're not going to jail, so they can't take our channel down over that. So $20, okay. You're on. I predict that the Doug Ford government will be defeated. He will be not just defeated, he'll be destroyed politically. The party will be a shell of what it was. Here's why. It's simply a numbers thing. Prior to in the last election, the New Blue, Ontario Party, they were not a factor. The populist, so-called populist party of Ontario, if they're even properly registered, I don't know if they even are. They weren't even in the game. Okay. No. So you had a united conservative front. You had a strong conservative base looking for a strong conservative leader. And they thought that's what they were getting in Doug Ford. And you're not allowed to change your mind when I give you this incredibly persuasive argument.
Okay.
I'm
calling it as it is. It's going to be a conservative minority.
So he had his base. He had this strong conservative base, and that's what he grew with. He was a smart campaigner back then. He had the buck a beer thing, which resonated with a certain group of people. Okay.
Well, not only that,
you're interrupting my persuasive argument, but go ahead anyway.
Well, not only that, we had Kathleen Wynne in office, and she, at the time, tried to call him a Donald Trump, and and that blew up right in her face because the media tried to provoke a comment out of Doug Ford. He said, "Well, that really hurts my feelings, and I think I'm not going to say anything like that about her because I'm a pretty nice guy. But what I will do is I'll attack her policies. We're going to take the high road on this one."
Well,
and
you just added to my persuasive argument, because back then the liberals had serious PR problems. They had energy issues. They had Dalton McGuinty had to step down as the Liberal premier, handed it off to Wynne, but she wasn't terribly popular either. And the party had some image problems and some serious issues. They were carrying a lot of political baggage. So that was to Doug Ford's advantage as well. So he had a lot of things going for him. Plus, he knew how to campaign and win over some of the, how shall I put it, certain communities in certain certain ethnicities, certain demographics. He concentrated on new Canadians, on immigrants. He tapped into that in a way that a lot of conservatives in the past were not able to, because he was a smart campaigner and said a lot of the right things. And I remember, anyway, he just did. And I won't go into more detail on that, but that was an important aspect of it as well. But the everything has changed now, baby. Everything has changed. And a lot of that support that he had that put him over the top was soft, because that was a lot of those immigrant voters, especially, and new Canadians. They're soft. They'll go liberal pretty easily. And this time around, he's lost a big chunk of his base. They're not going to vote for him. They are fed up with him. The Liberals who voted for him before are not going to vote for him because they don't think he went hard enough on all this lockdown stuff. By going as hard as he did, he made a big mistake because he lost his conservative base. By not going hard enough, he lost his Liberals. Now he's got splintered conservative groups bleeding off his support. So he's bleeding on both sides, pal. He's done. He's done like Din Din. He ain't coming back. He's going to that big place in the sky where old premiers go, which is heaven for premiers, okay? Or maybe hell, because he ain't coming back. But he's going to one of those two places, and I ain't going to judge which, but you can decide for yourself. I think I probably know which way he's going, up or down, and it ain't looking pretty. He ain't coming back. He's done like Din Din, okay? Doug Ford,
even though it sounds really nice, the idea of Doug Ford baking cheesecakes in hell, I don't think it's going to happen this time.
He's done. He's done. And the NDP will bleed off his support as well. And that is because the political landscape has changed so much. And yes, people will vote for the brands, but they're just going to shift back red and orange. And all those left-wing votes that he somehow miraculously got to put him over the top the last time, that only came his way because people were fed up with the libs. That's all that was. They weren't voting for him. They were voting against the Liberals. But this time, that's not going to happen. That's what the way a lot of people vote. They either vote for something, but most people vote against something. And this time, they're going to be voting against him instead of voting against the libs. So he's done, baby. He is out of there. The problem is, when he's gone in this part of the country, we are in deep doo-doo, because when these other Nimrods get in there, we're in so much crap. They're going to lock us down, lock us up, tie us up, mask us up, jab us up. They're going to stick it up our you-know-what.
Well, that's just it. The devil you know is better than the one you don't know.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, as bad as this has been, I mean, I'm almost like hoping, I'm hoping he does win again, because it's like, what do we get in place of that?
Yeah.
And I wish it could be like a new blue, right? I wish it could be, or some other conservative party, but that was truly conservative and respected people's rights and freedoms. But I fear I don't think that's going to happen. Now, we have reached out. We have some other candidates from the Ontario Party. I'm trying to get Jim Carhalios on here from the New Blue Party, the leader. We really want to talk to him because they have a lot of good things to share, and we'd like to get the word out for them so that people can find out what they're all about. And, we want to find out more about these other parties. And
absolutely. And I have made the decision at this point. I'm not going to publicly announce support for any party at this point. So it's going to be a wait and watch game, but maybe we shouldn't bet money on the internet. Maybe we'll do crinkle cut fries or something, but find out
if
who
we
was right.
only we could find them. And I found out, as a sidebar news story, I was not aware of the magnitude of this potato wart problem, or whatever it is, in PEI.
Potato wart?
Yeah, or whatever. There's a I'm not really familiar with it, but I know that they had a problem with potato production in farming in PEI, and then so the potatoes, a huge portion of the crop had to be destroyed because they weren't able to export a lot to the U.S., and it's caused supply chain issues for potatoes. But that isn't the only reason we're seeing shortages. It's also because of all the supply chain issues that have been created by government. And Vicky Sargenson says Ontario PCs need a new leader after the election. If Doug Ford was smart and really cared about his party, he'd step down now and let someone take the helm, because he is the reason the party will be defeated in this election, because he's the figurehead and he's the guy that people love to hate. So they should put someone else in, and then they might stand a chance of winning, but not with him there. And I've got $20 on it. So you know how much I mean it.
Yes, he does. But I believe I will win. We will see.
I hope I give you $20 if the alternative is one of the other two major parties. But if there's a surge, well, either way, I hope I lose. Because, well, no, I don't. Because I hope I win, but we get one of the other smaller parties to form the government. I just
Well,
can't see Ontarians or Canadians.
If you win, it could be anybody. If I win, it's going to be Doug Ford.
Yeah, but I only want to win if it's a good thing. I'll gladly give you the $20 if the alternative was one of the other major parties, a Liberal or NDP.
You're going down.
Thing. Yeah.
But there is a large boomer population that loves Doug Ford and thinks that he guided Ontario through the thick and thin of the past 2 years. That he's basically the Anthony Fauci of Ontario.
See, and even you're seeing it out in Alberta right now too with Jason Kenney. Like that guy's leadership is under review. It's coming up within I think a month, right? And we'll be providing some coverage on that as well. But he's very unpopular for the same reasons as Doug Ford. He's just as bad, maybe worse, because he likes to throw pastors in jail even more than Doug Ford does. And so a lot of people within his own party want him gone. And if he's not gone, they'll have a real hard time in the next election because the base just won't vote for that guy. They'll splinter off again. They need to get rid of him in order to preserve their party. The same thing in Ontario. They need to get rid of that dude. He's bad news. He's really bad news. And I kind of wish that he meant half of the things that he said. You just never know what the guy's going to do. He was at a news conference today and said a bunch of things, and they sounded pretty good about taxation and rolling taxes back, but he doesn't really mean half the stuff. He's talking about Sorry, go ahead.
That's just it. You don't know. And he does sound nice. Like he had that video at Christmas time where he's talking about the World Economic Forum and all this other stuff. And he says one thing, but then does the opposite. Which has been a big problem in Canada as far as I'm concerned.
Huge problem with all the politicians. You just don't, you can't trust them. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. And, well, yeah, I just don't trust them.
Well, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. How does that work?
Shame. Well, they've been fooling us over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? It just doesn't stop. They keep fooling us and fooling us and fooling us. Only now it's like the chips are really down, right? And it's really serious. When we needed them, they all failed us.
Yeah.
They all failed us, man. Yeah. Beer jab. Yeah. And, I was thinking, I'm really glad change of heart. It's a good thing we have someone like Doug Ford because the guy is the epitome of health. Just look at him, right?
Yeah.
So if anyone is going to give us health advice, that should be that guy, right? Or Dr. Tam. Look at Dr. Tam. Dr. Tam looks like, I don't know, just bursting with healthfulness and so pure and so, what's the word I'm looking for? I just can't put my finger on it.
I'm not sure, but
it's just I don't know. It just health advice from someone like Dr. Tam. Like, I just you really want to take health advice from somebody who looks healthy. You know what I'm saying? Who is healthy. Not just healthy of body, but also of mind.
Yes.
Here's a question. If you had a flat tire and you needed someone to come and help you, and you were out you're out on a back road, okay, and there's a psycho killer chasing you, and you get a flat tire, and the psycho killer has your GPS coordinates and is on his way. You have a limited amount of time to change your flat tire, and you don't have a lug nut wrench, and you have to make a phone call, and you've never changed a tire before, and you need somebody to come and help you. Who are you going to call? Dr. Tam? Dr. Tam's going to show up and help you change your tire? Do you think Dr. Tam would be able to handle it? Okay.
No.
Could Dr. Tam change the tire?
No.
If Dr. Tam can't figure out how to change the tire, do you think Dr. Tam is the person you want to take advice from when it comes to, things?
Because she's so fit and everything.
Or how about Doug Ford? Psycho killer on the way, right?
He's-
Hey,
he's-
Doug, I got me a psycho killer. He's on his way over here right now. He's going to be here in probably like 5 minutes, okay? I need you to get down here to the lug nut wrench, bring a jack, got you jack up my car, and change my tire. If you don't come here and help me get this thing changed right away, I'm a dead man. Okay, so Doug Ford shows up. Can he or can he not bend down to reach the lug nuts? If Doug Ford sits on the ground, if he sits down, will he be able to get back up? That is the question.
Well, that wouldn't matter so much. It would matter more so that he could change the tire. I think he could change the tire. He had that video where he went out and he started shoveling somebody out of the snow. Do you remember that? He called all the newspapers and media outlets. He's, oh, guys, come take some pictures. I'm going to shovel this person out of the snow in Toronto.
That's
Remember
right.
that?
He did shovel snow.
So, if he is fit enough to shovel the snow, he would be fit enough to change the tire, I believe.
No, I haven't got my bird flu shot yet. I just go out and let the birds crap all over me and in the backyard under my tree, or I just pick up all my antibodies that way. That was weird. Stop listening to me. Go watch another show right now. This one has run off the rails. Kenny is a high-level snake. He knows what the people are concerned about and then offers them the opposite of what they want. I don't understand that. That confuses me.
He knows what the people are concerned about and then offers them the opposite of what they want. Yeah. So I think what he means to say is that he offers them what the people think they want to hear, and then he goes around and flips it.
Right. I think it just came out wrong. So he's telling people what he thinks they want to hear.
Yeah.
But then that ends up doing evil things.
They're worried about the World Economic Forum? Okay, we'll talk about that. And then he talks about it, but then he could go and does...
His thing is, it's not that I'm part of the World Economic Forum. You see, you have to understand, it's just that all the people who say that I'm part of the World Economic Forum are nuts.
Yeah. Yep.
Justin True Potato did it. Yep. You're just voting for the best liar, says Matt Sullivan. Yep.
Yeah. Well, go to the top.
Yeah, we don't live in the U.S. Yeah. Well, no, but we have a lot of people in the U.S. watching. We have a lot of U.S. viewers, and we are truly international.
And when we took calls the other day, we had people from New York and Miami, Florida.
And we had, on the weekend, dude, I don't think you were on that night. No. We had a caller from Antarctica.
What?
Yes, it was the coolest thing. It was a great call. We talked about a few different really cool stories and issues, including climate change, where he sort of cast new light on the cliched image and perception that people have of Antarctica because of the way the media portrays Antarctica. And he's tuned right in. He might be listening tonight. Great guest. And it was just the most interesting conversation I'd had in days. Really grateful for him calling in and participating in the call-in show. It was fantastic. And the call-in show is awesome. When people are calling in now on the phone system, it's fantastic. We get to have this great engagement with the viewers, and they get to have a voice on the show. And it's a lot of fun. And I learned a few things, from our caller from Antarctica. And it was awesome.
That's pretty badass. It is one of my childhood dreams to travel to Antarctica.
Really?
I had it all planned out. At one point, I was going to travel to Chile, and then I was going to travel to Antarctica.
Which brings me to Dalton McGuinty, the former premier of Ontario. When he was the premier, I was working still for CTV, and he was out campaigning. I believe it was his final election. And he went to a kindergarten class. And
I don't like where this is going.
He was reading a storybook to little kids at this kindergarten class because he was making some announcement about funding for schools or whatever. And in the course of talking to the kids about this book, there was a penguin in it. And Dalton McGuinty said that if you went to the North Pole, you'd see a lot of penguins there. There's a problem with that. See, penguins don't live at the North Pole.
No.
They live in
You don't say.
They live further south.
You don't say. Get out of town.
Yeah. So I was like the only reporter who picked up on it. I was there with, like all these other mainstream dudes, and I'm like, and dudettes. And I'm like,
it's.
And like nobody else is like picking up on this, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, did you hear what he said? And they're, what? Like, didn't you hear that? He's telling the kids that penguins live at the North Pole. He's teaching these kids
misinformation.
He's teaching these kindergartners that penguins live at the North Pole.
We should do one of those.
And all the reporters are looking at me like, what? And then I'm like second guessing myself, and I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the one who's crazy. So then I got out my phone. Where do penguins live? Yeah. And then I'm like, no, okay. Do penguins live at the North Pole? No. Anyway, I made it part of my story, but I knew then that I was really in trouble working at CTV. Because guess what happened when I called the assignment desk to tell them that I had Dalton McGuinty on camera reading to kids about penguins, telling them that penguins live at the North Pole in an election.
What'd they say?
They hemmed and they hawed, and they weren't sure if they should run it.
What?
They couldn't quite make up their minds. Finally, after much pleading and begging, and I had to point out that it was Dan Quayle who didn't know how to spell potato, and that cost him dearly. Maybe you don't remember who Dan Quayle was. He was a U.S. politician.
I'm afraid I don't. Yeah. I don't remember who he is.
Anyway, I had to point out that we kind of went whole hog on the Dan Quayle potato story, and he was at a school and couldn't spell potato. So they said, okay, we can run it, but they downplayed it, and they kind of gave it a soft chuckle thing, and then they kind of moved on. But at least they ran it. But that was a time when I could tell there was a big shift going on at CTV, where the narrative was being shaped, and we weren't just reporting the news anymore, and we were picking and choosing which politicians we were going to treat well and which ones we were going to be a little harder on. So,
yeah, that is a pretty good indicator, especially because, it's like you said, there was the other politician who did not know how to spell potato, but then this guy over here is giving misinformation about where penguins live and that sort of thing. I truly believe if you can find the footage for that, it should be, you can make a Canada Heritage moment about the Liberal Party Ontario, those commercials, and you could put misinformation, a part of Liberal Party heritage.
Yeah, so in fact, you know what, if you type in Dan Quayle, right?
Yeah.
He was the former vice president. And if you type in Dan Quayle, the first thing that comes up, just type in his name, and right behind it, the word potato comes up. That's how big of a deal that was. Here, I'm going to play the clip of that whole thing going down with Dan Quayle. I've got it queued up here, so everybody will understand what I'm talking about and why I thought the Dalton McGuinty misstep on the Penguins was kind of a big deal at the time in the middle of an election campaign. Here it is. Former Vice President Dan Quayle misspells potato. This kid goes up. It's a spelling contest or something. And the kid has to spell potato.
Oh, lovely cursive. Look at that.
And he tells the kid, no, you spelled it wrong.
The audio is like not there.
Yeah. Yay. Now you spelled it wrong.
Oh,
Spell that again. And add one little bit on the end. Just a second. Potato. How's it? You write phonetically. Put it up. There you go. Spell that.
That cost Dan Quayle big time.
just shoot me. Just shoot me.
And what is Justin Trudeau's nickname in China?
Little potato.
Little potato. The irony. Isn't that weird?
Mm.
Dan Quayle, potato.
Yeah,
Justin
absolutely.
Trudeau, potato, little potato. And Dalton McGuinty and the Penguins.
It's funny, I tried Googling the Penguin story. It's not showing up anywhere.
Yeah, because I was the only one that would report it. None of the other reporters would even touch it. And I was like talking to them, and I was outside the school as we were all kind of wrapping up and we were going to file our stories, and I was talking to them all, and I said, didn't you guys pick up on that? Like, penguins don't live at the North Pole, guys, right? You know that. And they're like, And then a couple of them were like, yeah, we know. I'm like, well, aren't you going to report it? Like, anyway, they didn't. They just didn't. I was the only one, the only reporter. So, folks, do you understand why I left? Do you understand why I left CTV after 25 plus years? I had to get out of there. It wasn't that one thing. Like, it wasn't that alone, but it was just one thing of many, right? No fairness. No fairness. Danielle says penguin maybe live in the snow. Yes, in the Antarctica.
In Antarctica?
Trine Turner says, read that book by Katie Hales. My name is Monstor, who spent time before the virus in Antarctica. Read the story and know what they've planned next. Not familiar.
That could be good.
Don't know anything about it. Peter McCardle says, polar bears live in Antarctica.
No.
Bob Beck says, must be electric car or they leave you there. Right. So, moral of the story is, if you're going to get chased by a psycho killer and call for help, and you call Theresa Tam or Doug Ford, make sure you tell them you have an electric car or they ain't coming. In which case, you are dead meat on the back 40. Brendan, you're giving Pamela Bieber vibes tonight. Brendan, I can see that. I get it. You've kind of gone from being fab to being a
believer.
You're making a believer out of me.
Well, the hair is going tomorrow, so this is the last of the hair.
I'm a believer.
Don't
sorry,
ever do that again.
that's the Monkees.
Yeah.
Doug Fraud is offering $1 beer shots. Is that still part of his platform? Vodka is made from Robert Starr, Dan Quayle. Yes. I don't know why he's talking to Robert Starr. I blame Disney, as you should.
Yes.
Par. Yes, you should blame Disney.
We should all blame Disney.
If it wasn't for Disney, this whole pandemic thing, this COVID thing would be over with.
Exactly. I can
Never
smell...
seen a sloth in ice either.
Well, I mean, you never know. There could be some pocket of Antarctica that has a sloth completely frozen under.
Now, there's an interesting question. Do penguins have knees?
Good question.
You
Let's
see,
Google it.
I only knew that they did not live at the North Pole. I am not a penguin expert, nor have I ever said that I was.
Oh, penguins do have knees. A penguin's
you.
leg is composed of a short femur, knee, tibia, and fibia. Now you know.
Brenda says she remembers that happening to Dan Quayle, as did I, which just shows that I have way too much useless information in my skull. Young woman Katie Hales wrote her book after staying at Heinz Writers Retreat in 2019, then went to finish the book in Antarctica. Expenses all paid. The story goes, after the apocalypse. Okay, got to check it out. Penguins also live in Madagascar. I saw it in a Disney Channel.
Yes, there is some. Southern Africa.
And I can't read half of that. Decca says she believes climate change is reality, not issue. Crisis, Iklim, Tidak, Kenya. I don't know what the rest of it means. I guess.
I think that might be like a different language or something.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I'm sorry. Happy Feet will never be the same. I agree, Louise. But I'll tell you what's going on now. There's a whole kindergarten class worth of people that have well, that would be, so they'd be in high school or college now, right?
Yeah.
And they all have been misinformed on the whole penguin thing. And it's really a big problem. And now that little bit of misinformation is out there growing and festering. And Dalton McGuinty has planted that misinformation in those young, impressionable minds. And now they're going to take that information and they're going to share it. And then they're going to take it and they're going to share it with 3 friends. And they're going to share it with 3 friends. And the
Russians get a hold of it and they're going to share it with everybody.
And the next thing you know, Donald Trump is back in the White House. And it's all because of Dalton McGuinty and the stupid penguin story. Because they made a new Happy Feet movie, and they told all the kids in the new Happy Feet movie that the penguins live at the North Pole.
Oh, boy.
You see how it goes, man? And that's why we need that censorship bill. What is it, C-11?
Yep.
To pass. We cannot have misinformation out there like that. We must control the internet and shut channels down like this one, where we repeat the Dalton McGuinty lies.
Ontario Liberals.
Even just speaking of it.
Yeah, that's
far too
why
dangerous.
That's why this episode is going down, not because of anything else we said. However, if YouTube takes it down, you need to fight with them and proclaim that your pronouns are, what was it? They, it?
Brendan. The it. It.
Then they won't be able to come down hard on you because you'll be one of those pronoun people.
Me, the it.
The it.
You, the Brendan.
No, I don't. You could pronoun me whatever, I don't care. But anyway, just tell YouTube that you're a pronoun person and they won't.
Is the a pronoun?
Anything could be a pronoun, Rick Walker. Have you not been paying attention?
I don't think it qualifies as a pronoun, does it?
Everything qualifies as a pronoun. Oh yeah. There's people out there who say "rah" is a pronoun. And I'm not even going to bother. bringing up those videos because they are ridiculous, and that is not what we do here. I try to refrain from insane TikToks.
I don't think "the" is actually a pronoun. It's an article. I think it's an article.
Everything is a pronoun now, Rick Walker. See, look, you put pronouns in the show, and now we're fighting. See what this does to people? It's divisive. Identity politics. Actually, I think I brought up the pronouns, so my bad. Put a wedge right in our friendship. We can't be friends anymore.
Yeah. So what else has gone on out there today?
Well, I guess now is a good time to talk about war crimes.
Is it?
Seeing as this episode
has deteriorated beyond belief.
Yeah, it has.
Well, we're seeing, news stories erupting everywhere because of this. Here's NBC News. Horrifying images from Ukraine spark renewed calls for war crime investigations.
Literally away, but former President Donald Trump is already taking aim at some fellow Republicans.
That didn't supposed to play. But we're looking at calls to hold Russia accountable for alleged war crimes in Ukraine have intensified as horrific images emerged over the weekend from the towns on the outskirts of Kiev after the retreat of Russian forces. So you see the way they kind of portray it right away that Russia's in retreat. Ukrainian officials and journalists shared photos and videos of what they said showed dozens of bodies in civilian clothing strewn in the streets of the town of Bucha, northwest of the capital of Kiev, as well as nearby towns. And we should warn you, there are very disturbing images here. So if you don't want to see it, look away. Just saying, look away if you don't want to see these. And here's this word mass graves again, which we've become familiar with here in Canada. Mass graves filled with civilians were found in the towns of Bucha, Hostomel, and Irpin. Sergei Nikiforov, a spokesman for President Volodymyr Zelensky, told the BBC on Sunday bodies were found with their hands and legs tied with bullet holes at the back of their heads, he said. Ukrainian officials say they've also found half-burned bodies, as if somebody tried to hide their crimes, but they did not have enough time to do it properly. Satellite images from Colorado-based Maxar Technologies, a U.S. government intelligence contractor, released late Sunday, showed what appeared to be a mass grave with a 45-foot-long trench by a local church in Bucha, while reporters for the AFP and the BBC have also reported seeing corpses in the streets of the city. Moscow has categorically denied any accusations, calling photos and videos from Bucha a provocation by Ukrainian authorities. On Monday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called them staged, and Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said information about the killings of civilians in Bucha must be seriously questioned. Russian officials have consistently denied targeting civilians since Russia invaded Ukraine in February. Human Rights Watch also said Sunday that its own investigators had documented summary executions and other grave abuses in several regions Russia controlled in Ukraine, including around Kiev. Ukraine, the United States, and its allies have accused Russia of war crimes over the past weeks, but the latest reports have deepened the condemnation and calls for investigations. So this goes on, of course. And the question is, well, we'll let this roll. I'm going to play this video. Here we go. I'm going to bring this up so it's full screen. You have to use the subtitles if you are not able to understand the language. So she says, Tatiana Volodymyrovna Volodymyrivna, and her husband, a former Ukrainian Marine, were taken prisoner when Russian troops stormed their apartment building. She says she identified his body by his boots. So her husband was beaten, and then they were taken to the Russian headquarters, which had been set up on the second story of their building.
Приходит 5 дней, 10.
5 days passed, 10, then 13.
Уже 13 дней. Я его
I was
ищу,
looking for
ищу.
my husband.
А потом
Then I went to a basement.
я подхожу до этого подвала, а женщина, пошла я заяву
Before that, I had written a report to the Red Cross
Красному Кресту, что у меня муж пропал такого-то, такого-то числа. 13 дней
saying
я
I had been
его
looking and
ищу.
looking for him.
Они взяли
They took my
мои данные,
details.
все. Я прихожу, а
When I
эта
came to the
женщина говорит,
basement,
Тань, иди посмотри, может в подвале
Tanya
там два
said
трупа
to look
лежат.
there as 2 bodies were lying inside. She said my husband could be there.
Может твой муж там. Ой, ребят, прихожу, я узнала его по кроссовкам, по штанам, и он бедненький лежал.
When I came down, I recognized him by his shoes, his trousers.
Лицо изуродованное. Он уже холодный был. Его развернули.
His face was mutilated. His body was cold. They turned him over a
У
little.
моего соседа фотография его есть. Выстрел
The
в
neighbor
его
still has a
голову
picture of his face.
и
He had been shot in the head,
Ну,
mutilated,
закопал.
tortured.
Ну, я пошла в
I went
Красный
to the Red
Крест и
Cross
говорю,
and
что
asked them
мне
what I
делать,
should do.
чтобы собаки не растаскали. Ну, сказали, что я
I
вам
would show
покажу
his
могилу,
grave.
а
Wait.
его... Подождите.
He
Его
was
на
buried a
метр
meter deep so
закопали,
dogs wouldn't
мы,
eat him.
чтоб
That
не
was it.
растаскали собаки его. И вот это все. Крестика не сделали его.
Vladimir Ravina's husband was buried in a shallow grave, a shot of vodka topped with a cracker resting on the freshly dug earth.
Это его тут голова. Вот мы его так присыпали, как могли.
Russia's defense ministry says allegations of war crimes by Russian troops in Bucha were a provocation and no resident there suffered violence at the hands of Russian troops. That was NBC News.
I was able to catch that on my phone. It's very, very sad stuff. And this is what you get when you get war.
And what is truth? What is the truth? We don't know what the truth is because we're not there, and there's propaganda flying around all over the place.
Yeah.
And in war, we have also seen that either side might be capable of staging false flag attacks. And we've seen as we've seen in other conflicts, other wars. I know that when I look back at the Syrian conflict, you go back to like 2016 and the way the media was ramping things up with propaganda heading into the 2016 presidential election. And this is, the Russians in Syria backing Assad and the West, the United States, trying to stir things up in there. And they wanted to go to war in the worst way. And then we saw false flag attacks take place inside Syria. We saw things happen where at first it looked like atrocities were being committed by the Syrians against their own people, when in reality, it turned out to be something that was probably a false flag attack, where it wasn't the Syrian government; it was the rebels trying to drag the West into the conflict and give the West a reason to come in and escalate. And you could see that some of the things had been staged. And it was clear that they had been. And so when I see things like this, I see the media campaign around it, I get skeptical. And I'm sorry if I am saying that, and some people find that to be distasteful, but I'm skeptical. I'm not saying that those people weren't killed. They were, obviously.
Absolutely. And this goes back to what we've been saying all along, that these are the people who have gotten hurt from United States over involvement in Ukraine after all these years. It's the people who pay, and at the end of the day, like that woman that they just portrayed, she's being used as a pawn. And not only is she being used as a pawn now, she's a political pawn that they're using to drag the West into this war. And that's,
yeah, I mean,
and that's a sad reality of this.
I mean, what's a pawn is somebody being used. I would say journalists can play an important role in war if what they're portraying is truth. Mm-hmm. And if you're interviewing someone and you're doing it in an ethical way, and the purpose is to bring truth to people, I think it's justified to do it. If you're twisting things, then you're just evil, because you're part of the problem. If you engage in propaganda like that, then you're part of the problem. And the problem is we don't know who to trust right now.
No.
And so I don't know how to interpret those images that we're seeing come out of there. Just as we weren't sure how to interpret those images coming out of the areas of Ukraine where they've declared independence, and then we saw that Zelensky's Ukrainian forces had used a UN bomb, and they'd been shelling them with UN weaponry. I believe that to be true.
Wait,
there is evidence there.
I think it's NATO.
Yeah.
Equipment.
Sorry, NATO equipment.
Just
NATO
to be straight.
bomb. Yes, that's right. And the important message to take away from that is that the U.S., Canada, they're using our tax money to furnish these weapons. Mm-hmm. The money that you donate on Facebook. You know, I've seen Facebook collecting money for Ukraine. Hello. Do you know where your money is going? Do you know where all these tax dollars, our money, Canadian and U.S. tax dollars, our tax dollars, do you know where it's going? It's going into the hands of defense contractors, munitions companies, the corporations that manufacture these weapons. They're getting rich.
Yeah.
And they're shipping all the weapons over there. Why are we seeing civilians or people in civilian clothing dead in the streets? I would suggest to you that there might be a possibility that they weren't just civilians. They might have been armed, because they're handing out weapons willy-nilly to anyone that wants them over there. And they're encouraging civilians to go and fight. So if you end up with a bunch of civilians dead, I don't think anyone should be surprised.
And we've been saying that since day one, that there's major concerns with doing that. And not only that, if you are simply a civilian, you're not going to be given the same treatment as you are a POW, because at that point, the Russian army has every reason to suspect that you're either a saboteur or a spy, which traditionally, if you were a saboteur or a spy in any type of war situation, it usually is an on-the-spot execution, because they don't have to treat you according to any Geneva Convention.
And then we showed you the video of the Russian soldiers, and there's other video just as bad, but we showed you the video of those soldiers being shot in the knees as they were bound and tied, and they'd been subdued, and they shot them in the knees, crippled for life and probably dead. left to bleed out and beaten. They were beaten with their heads covered up with bags, and then they took them off, and you could see that they'd been severely beaten. So if it's going on, it might be going on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And
or is it Russia doing it because that video went out, and you bet your ass that Russia is paying attention to the internet, and we've seen that with some stories already, where people are messaging people from military locations, and then Russia is picking up on the location and then bombing them. So Russia is examining this very closely, and they see this, and they're going to retaliate over it.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from this story is these repeat calls for investigations. And what the hell does that mean? And what the hell does that get you?
Mm-hmm.
That's an important question. I think what it means is that they want more Western involvement, and the end result of an investigation would be more Western involvement.
Yeah.
And they're working hard to keep the story on top. That's why Zelensky was at the Grammy Awards this weekend.
And the other thing, it's like, it's interesting to see this development, this story, right now, as all this stuff about the Hunter Biden laptop is bubbling to the surface, as all this corruption with the Biden family in Ukraine is bubbling to the surface. And now, war crimes with Russia. And a U.S. intelligence defense contractor just happens to have all these images of a mass grave from, aerial shots. Remember with COVID, remember the mass grave in New York City? Remember that footage? No? That scared the living daylights out of people.
So what,
you don't remember that?
People who died of COVID, they made a big mass grave for them?
That's what they said. See if I can find a picture. Here we go. Here's a picture, aerial shot. They were digging a mass grave because, they wanted to scare the living daylights out of people. New York ramps up mass burials amid outbreak. This was when the pandemic was just getting started. It's funny how mass graves come into play all the time these days. Whenever there's a story that requires people to be either revolted, disgusted, angry, fearful.
George,
the reality of that is that those are graves that they dig all the time, because the population is so large in New York, and the homeless population is so large that they bury people, a lot of homeless people, that way. So there's just a nugget of truth and a lot of spin, and then a lot of fear. So this stuff, this is why I'm skeptical about it all. It's the speed with which this story is being reported. It's the way in which it's being reported. It's the add-on information from U.S. intelligence services to just add a little spice to it all. It's just all a little too convenient in the timing for Joe Biden and his son. And it just doesn't, there's just something about it that just doesn't seem to ring right. There might be some truth in it. It might be completely true. But somehow there's something about that story, this whole story, that just doesn't seem to sit right. And there's been a lot of that going on from the very beginning of this conflict, right? How much have we seen, especially from the Ukrainian side, trying to manipulate public opinion in various ways? And why? Because they want more weaponry. And you've got a lot of people on the U.S. side that want to escalate this thing, and they'd like to see U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine. They want to push this. There are a lot of warmongering hawks out there, and that concerns me. So yeah, I'm not prepared to just take this story at face value. That's my take on it. And I'm not saying I've drawn any specific conclusions. I'm still in asking questions mode and waiting to see if any truth comes to light from any of this, how it plays out.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, I would just wrap it. I would just say my final thought would be clearly the purpose of that and this outrage over it appears to be for manipulation of the masses, even especially if it is true. But I don't think getting involved is still going to do anything good. But we already are involved, so I can't really speak to that. But they want more involvement, and I don't think that'd be good either. There's too much going on before this war with Western with U.S. backed individuals and that sort of stuff. Too much going on with it. The whole thing stinks to high hell, especially with Chrystia Freeland and Hunter Biden. There's so many big name politicians or people of political families that are involved in this for me to trust any of it either. But with this story, it's purely about manipulation. And it works because thousands of people have lined up to go over to Ukraine and die, as it is.
Yeah. So it's all very dangerous as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I'm just not prepared to take it at face value. So
yeah, exactly.
It's just one of the things to get behind as part of the thing to get behind now, right?
I'm a part of the current thing, blah, blah, blah. I get you. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like a lot of these images coming out of any war zone, you see a terrible thing happen, but then it's like, what's the context? Like what's the story behind it? Why did this happen?
Well, you got your 5 W's, right? Who, what, when, where, why.
Yeah.
If you can't answer it, and that's the problem with the media is they're not interested in those 5 whys. In Ontario, there is what they call a literacy test, and a part of that literacy test, every student has to write a quote unquote news report, which captures the five W's, and I find it hilarious that how little people pay attention. Maybe that testing is good if it's promoting that type of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, people don't incorporate that into their daily lives. But you at home should always ask yourself that question, the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, why.
Bernadette Zelensky says she never saw the knees footage. Yeah, I don't really want to run it again.
Yeah,
it was brutal.
It was, yeah, there was a lot of blood. I'm not. I don't enjoy watching that stuff. I really don't. I've seen some gruesome videos in my time, but I can't say I've sought any of them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing why I don't trust anything coming out of it. It's this guy here. Like, that's a very good point, Andre.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find that.
But hopefully not the knees one. Because
no, not the knees one. The one of Zelensky, green screen. See if I can find a good version of it here for you. This isn't a good one. This one's been edited so that you can't see him walking up. Well, I'll put this up. It's not the best version, but in the interest of time, we will share this with you. If you haven't seen this, I think it's an interesting. It's a point of conversation for sure because it makes you kind of wonder. So this was a few days ago, I think.
Oh, that's a total green screen. You can tell.
So if you look at this carefully, and you look at the edges, you can see that there's like a green screen edge around him. At times I can see his ear on his right ear, which is on the left, my left side of the screen. It sort of dissolves. There's also a different version where you can see him. He actually walks up in this video from the background, and the proportion is all wrong.
But you can really tell.
Sorry, go ahead.
You can tell how the jacket really pops against the background as opposed to being in it. It's clearly
the lighting appears different.
Yes.
Now you could light this with lights, but that lighting, everything to me that says he's inside, and that's an outside shot. The way the lighting looks.
Yes, because that lighting and that shot in the background he would come off looking a lot more yellow, I would say.
Yeah, unless, I mean, if you have cameras or lights set up, it could be a different color temperature lighting him, but even then usually you get sort of bleed in behind him. And what we're getting here is just him against
a green screen.
Yeah. So that's making people wonder if he's even still in the country, if he has maybe left. I have a different explanation. And but I'll let you go first and for any other comments you have, Brendan, before I chime in anymore.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I mean, to me, it looks very popped out against the backdrop. And that's not what you get. Also, some of the angles look weird. I don't think those. It clearly a picture, and they're using it as a backdrop. That's what I would say about the whole thing, right? So, go ahead.
So, I don't think anybody should be surprised that he's doing things like that. I don't know if you should read too much into it, or speculate too much, or suggest that maybe he's left the country because he's afraid he's losing the war or anything like that. I think that one of the reasons he might be doing green screen videos is so that the enemy can't figure out where he is. In this day and age, the Russians have the technology. If they know where you're located, they can send a missile straight into your window in a matter of minutes and take you out. So you don't want to be carrying a cell phone. You don't want to let them know where you are. Yeah. And so if you're going to shoot a video, the last thing you want to do is give away your location in your video. So what do? You shoot against a green screen and then release the video later from a different location. And you shoot it, you record it, and then upload it from another location far away from where you are so that they can't pinpoint your location on the internet. Right? You don't want an internet connection, a data connection. You don't want to do anything that shows them where you are in a video. You don't want to do anything live and then be like, I'm over here.
I get that, but at the same time, why are you lying? You could just do an indoor backdrop. It doesn't really matter what your backdrop is. And this is like putting like a false pretext out there that he's standing in a street. That he's trying to give you the image that he's out in the streets. So you don't have to lie about it. Just give it a generic backdrop. It doesn't matter. I mean, look at me. I use a black curtain. You don't know what's behind the curtain.
You have to remember, this guy's an actor.
Yeah.
And he's playing a role. And he's trying to pump up the troops and build public support for what he's doing and for the war effort. So for whatever reason, they decided to release videos like this. But it's clearly a green screen.
Yes, very clearly.
So
he doesn't have to lie, though. He could use whatever hellhole he's in the middle of. Use whatever backdrop. Don't gotta lie to everybody.
Well, but that's kind of my point too, though, Brendan, is if he shows any place he's at, any background, they get any clue out of that, they can kind of figure out where he is, start to zero in on his location and take him out. So you might not want to show any kind of a background at all. And they have highly sophisticated intelligence. They can pick up audio, listen to the background, try and figure out what part of the country or city he's in based on, I mean, we've all seen those crime-solving mystery shows, right? And all the forensic things that they do and all the different ways they track people down. Well, same thing. If you just shoot a video against, even in your basement someplace, right? They can kind of figure out where you're at. So anyway, who knows? It is what it is, and I don't know if we can really read any more into it than what is just on the surface.
We can't. That's all you could read into it.
There has been a lot of speculation about it, though. That's for sure. It's been going crazy on the internet. In fact, how do we even know it's him? How do we even know he's still alive? How do we not know that he's not like a computer-generated image or a double? Because they can even do that if they have the technology.
It would be very hard to steal his look. I mean,
yeah. Julie Waters says, "Was he ever in Ukraine?"
Oddly enough, I'd taken a look at someone's Netflix on the weekend, and I'd seen they put Zelensky's television show up on there.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I mean, not surprising at all, because of course Netflix is always going to support the current thing, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, and Daniel says everybody uses this kind of background, nothing new. Yeah, I heard talk about this, and then I wasn't terribly interested in it because it's just not the kind of thing that we can ever really get to the bottom of, right? It's obvious what it is. Why are they doing it? They have their reasons, and we don't know what they are. We can only speculate. Scott Troop says, I thought the videos were pre-recorded and then on media streams, so the game is played before the events happen. Yeah. Joss says, too bad Zelensky missed his calling for actor.
I think he did.
Andrew Simpson says, safest spot is just across the border in Russia. Patrick Cosley says he's going for an Oscar. Julie Walters says, Miss Jensky won. My money is on Biden's basement.
Julie Walters just won the night.
Patrick Cosley, he's in Will Smith's basement.
No, he wouldn't be safe there.
Kim R.S. says, Brendan, he's a politician, can't help but lie.
Yeah, exactly.
Partalian says, not shaved for 2 weeks.
I don't know where you get that.
Treen Turner says, Brendan, don't try and make excuses for them. They are not human. They don't give a crap about their people.
Oh, I didn't realize I was making excuses for people.
Well, stop it. Frosty says, yep, even by a plug in a room that a spy has been in and recognized. Yes. You never know. what could give away your location. Daniel Uragase says, we not experts, just all comedians. Sure is a reason for that.
Oh, I thought Zelensky was a comedian.
Josh Broersma says he better turn back to being a comedian. A bad one, but a comedian. Yeah. And Irina Stavriva says Zelensky is at the U.S. Embassy in Poland and is doing everything under CIA pressure. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Nope.
Sicilian O Toronto says he's in Poland. And Julie Walters says he's pulling a Hayden Biden. Yeah.
Oh my God, still going on about that. I told you he's not safe in there.
Rhea Timmerman says phone service to Bernadette. Not sure what that means, except don't use your cell phone or you'll find out where you are. Scott Troop says maybe he is in the States. Siciliano Toronto says we can fix him. We have the technology. Z needs better tech. Yeah. Is Trudeau real? That's another question. How do we know Justin Trudeau is even real?
Well, because, I mean, look at who he was during Sunny Ways, and now he's like a totally different monster.
He could be a cyber clone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did the same thing with Paul McCartney, so.
He could be a transhuman potato head.
I think maybe when he grew his beard during the pandemic, he became evil Trudeau.
Well, if you look at the DNA from potato and the DNA from Justin Trudeau, just saying.
He's a human potato hybrid. He has to stay away from deep fryers.
I don't want to get into any misinformation here, but he's not at a million. So what else is going on out there? I think we've talked enough about Ukraine for one night.
The United States Democrats are scared crapless. It looks to me that the Democrats during the midterms are going to be toast this year. So on TikTok, Gen Z for Change is like freaking out about this. As you know, they have the filibuster going on over the Build Back Better Act that Biden has constructed, which is a massive document. This midterm swing is going to be a deal breaker, I think. And across the board, things are screaming Republican at this point, and Democrat Party officials are they're going down hard. So let's take a look at this, and we can see the fear seeping right through. All right, ready when you are to let it rip.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a sort of panicked email this morning from my friends who work at the Civic Center. They reached out to me because they're looking at youth voter registration numbers in Ohio, a state, I might add, where we have a really important Senate race in November. So what they told me is that at this point, with the primary coming up on May 3rd, only 25% of Ohio 18-year-olds in populous counties are registered to vote. 25. I'm going to be very blunt with you right now. All of the stuff that is threatening our futures right now and scaring us to death, climate change, attacks on LGBTQ kids, the attacks on our reproductive freedom, we are 2 Senate seats away from being able to do something about that. In November, there are 4 Senate seats in play, including in Ohio. 2 more senators and we can reform the filibuster. Then we can pass all kinds of life-altering bills, like the Equality Act, the PRO Act, the Women's Health Protection Act, Child Tax Credit, common sense gun laws, climate legislation. It's all so close we can almost touch it, but not if you don't vote. I got a sort of panicked email this morning from my friends who work at the Civic.
Well, that was frightening. So what's new? Young people don't bloody vote. They never vote. That's like the number one demographic that doesn't ever vote is the 18 to 30.
Yeah, they do tend to vote more left than right when, young. And in Canada, what's the saying? It's Tory by 40.
Yeah. So I think, though, that they're terrified. They know what's coming. It's going red all the way. Maybe not in traditional strongholds like New York, for example, which, let's be honest, places like New York are just Democrat hellholes. But they have made life excruciatingly bad for people in a lot of these blue strongholds. And people aren't putting up with it anymore. And believe me, if these people were to have their wishes, they would call giving somebody improper pronouns a hate crime and throw you in jail for it, which is the type of protections that they're asking about. As you already know, if somebody's harassing you, you already have rights to protection. And that people are not just allowed to go up to you and harass you for your gender, race, or creed. It's just not allowed. Putting in more laws isn't going to stop that. It's not going to change anything, if it is even happening. Because I think those situations would need to you need to look at them and look at the reality of them. But I really think that that portrays liberals are very scared. Things have kind of been down the middle, as it states, because they haven't been able to break that filibuster. And they think that they will be able to. But I really don't think so. And who's to say 25%? Who's to say that 25% of that is going to be voting all Democrat? Because I think younger people are becoming more engaged in Republican and conservative style politics. I think that's also swinging as well. And you're seeing that in pulp culture. Like, Let's Go Brandon music and rap is hitting top of iTunes charts. It's not people our age buying it on iTunes. It's young people buying it on iTunes. Make sense?
I don't know. I think that you're going to see a push, to swing further to the Republican side for sure. But there's still a lot of time between now and then, and a lot can happen in politics in that amount of time. And the Democrats are fierce. So
well, they like to make up a lot of stories, I think. And we've seen that. We've seen that with the Hillary Clinton campaign. Her campaign was recently. Yes, Kid Rock, We the People is awesome.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure it's not looking good for them so far.
Yeah. So we also today saw that General Motors announced another huge investment in Canada. They have a $2 billion investment in 2 factories, in Oshawa and at the Cami plant in Ingersoll, Ontario, Canada. And this will result in a couple of things. It allows them to expand production at the Oshawa facility, where they will be building not just Silverado pickups, but also a smaller version of the pickup there as well. And at the Cami plant, they are going to be building an electric vehicle. It's called the Bright Drop, and it's like a commercial utility vehicle. And we have the president of GM North America here right now in this clip, from earlier today. We did go live with this earlier today, but we'll just touch on a couple of the highlights from the news conference, which was held in Oshawa and involved the premier and executives from General Motors, where we also learned that the federal and provincial governments will be investing $259 million each into these General Motors facilities.
And we continue to hire and to expand. Canada is also becoming critical to the EV battery supply chain, as you saw with our recent investment announcement with Minister Champagne in Beaucancourt, Quebec. Together with our partner, POSCO Chemicals, we will process minerals into cathode active material for GM's Ultium batteries. You might say that there'll be a little bit of Canada in every new electric vehicle from GM. So today, I'm pleased to announce that GM's transformational investments of over $2 billion in Canada are well on their way. We will convert our Ingersoll operation to become Ontario's very first full-scale electric vehicle manufacturing plant, with production to begin before the end of this year. Yeah. We're also confirming that we're on track to create more than 2,600 new direct jobs since operations resumed at our Oshawa plant. Yeah.
Plant was shut down just a couple of years ago, 3 years ago.
And many more indirect new jobs all through our automotive supply chain. Now, I want to acknowledge the great work of Scott Bell and his team to get us here today. As you heard last week, Scott has been appointed to lead Global Chevrolet, so congratulations to Scott.
Ford looks pretty uncomfortable there.
It's also my great pleasure to also introduce to you today GM Canada's new president and managing director, Marisa West. So now I would like to invite Scott and Marisa to the platform to tell you some more. Scott, Marisa?
We'll let a
Thanks,
little bit of this
Steve,
roll
and
here
welcome
too.
Everybody, exciting day for us for sure. I want to add my congratulations to Marisa, who I know you'll continue this great momentum that we're building here in Canada from this day forward. So in addition to the news that GM will be the first to bring full-scale EV production in Canada, I am pleased to also announce today that Oshawa Assembly will now add the Chevrolet light-duty Silverado pickup truck to its plant production. As a result, we will be adding a third shift at Oshawa Assembly in the coming months. As Steve mentioned, when the third shift begins, we will have created more than 2,600 new jobs since restarting our operations here in Oshawa. And these are our new jobs, but they are now jobs, right? So this is a great, great day for us as these folks are getting ready to go to work. With this.
So that was the announcement from the GM officials. And yeah, big day for Oshawa, big day for the Canadian auto industry. Of course, all of this really being directed by government grants, initiatives, regulations, incentive programs, all of it, because they're transitioning the industry, come heck or high water, into electric vehicle production. So that's what the announcement was today. And then, of course, we had the premier there. And we can pick up his comments with regard to this announcement as well. So here's Doug Ford, Ontario's premier, talking about an additional massive investment in the Canadian auto industry in his province, in Oshawa and Ingersoll. And of course, this comes right after this massive announcement down in Windsor, where Stellantis and LG with government assistance as well, hundreds of millions of tax dollars going into that to build an electric vehicle battery facility there. So lots of jobs up front, but we'll have to see where things end up in the medium and long term. And I sure hope that it pans out and it results in more prosperity for everyone, because we are fully committed, folks, at this point. I don't think there's any turning back now.
Once again, it's a pleasure to be joined by Minister Fedeli, Minister Champagne, and MP Turnbull, and all the other dignitaries, Mayor and Unifor folks, everyone, and our MPPs as well. And to be back right here with the incredible team from GM. Friends, our government has a plan to attract more investment in our auto and manufacturing sectors. A plan that's connecting resources, industries, and workers in Northern Ontario to a future of clean steel and electric vehicles. Over the past 2 years, we've seen game-changing investments in our auto sector, with more than $12 billion in new investments, including more than $4 billion from the province. We'll bring pickup truck production to Oshawa and electric commercial vehicle production to Ingersoll, as Ingersoll becomes GM's designated hub for its new electric commercial vehicle brand, BrightDrop. Today's investment will secure 2,600 jobs for the workers here in Oshawa and to add a third shift at the plant. This is good.
What are you laughing at, boy?
Folks, this is just another huge win for the people of Durham and for all of Ontario. These kinds of game-changing investments are proof that our government's plan is working. We're building on our province's long tradition of automotive excellence and investing to lead the electric vehicle revolution. We're making Ontario the best jurisdiction in North America to build the vehicles and batteries of the future. When we took office 4 short years ago, Ontario's auto industry was in terrible, terrible shape. I remember like it was yesterday. Auto companies were shutting down and leaving our province, taking thousands of jobs with them. In fact, because of the previous government's policies, this same plant closed down as well. But today is a whole different story. All that has changed. We now have secured investments from all major auto companies here in Ontario. Working with our great, and I emphasize great, federal and municipal and union partners, we've opened this plant in Oshawa back up, and we're securing our auto sector for the next generation of workers. We're investing in mineral production, battery production, clean steel production, and final assembly. We are investing in every part of the auto supply chain. The cars of the future will be built in Ontario from start to finish by Ontario workers. Because
did you notice how he said they're investing in every part of the supply chain?
Yep.
They're putting money in everywhere. I think that's an important thing for people to realize, and people need to understand that, okay, it's an investment, but they're investing your money. These are tax dollars, and they're picking winners and losers, right? Which companies will participate, which ones won't. Only the companies that get government money will survive or even be able to participate in this. As soon as government begins giving out grants like that, you have to give them to everybody, or at least all the companies that are going to be participating, because when you're giving out grants, the companies that don't get them, they're going to lose instantly. So the government gets to pick who wins and who loses. And when you're picking who wins and who loses, you're also putting yourself in a position where you get to control them, if you think about it, right? So these companies, GM today, for instance, announced that they've signed on for, what is it, Canada's diversity, I can't remember the name of it. I was writing a script earlier for an article I'm writing about this, but it's a diversity program through the federal government. And
yeah,
of course,
here, I'll get you a name on it. You go ahead.
And 50% of all the women, or all the people hired in the plant, of course, are women. That was a quota that they set and met. And, that's a government directive, and so they're participating in that. So you can see that these companies instantly fall in line with all of these different government programs. Maybe you're in favor of that and you like that, but I think you need to be aware that the government is basically buying compliance by injecting money into these companies. They're controlling these companies. So these companies become an arm's length extension of government. They work in hand in hand. So this is not true capitalism. This is government driven, the whole thing.
As we made a promise to transform our auto sector by harnessing and unleashing Ontario-made innovation and leveraging our highly skilled workforce to fill the jobs of tomorrow. We're on a mission to make Ontario the #1 destination anywhere in the world for business and jobs. And historic investments like this one today show that we're continuing to deliver. GM couldn't have chosen a better partner than Ontario, and thank you for that. Because our province has come so far, we can't afford to go back to the politics of no. Instead, your government is saying yes. Yes to good jobs for our workers. Yes to another century of being North American leaders in auto manufacturing, and yes to getting it done. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll pass it over to Minister Champagne, good partner.
So that was what was going on in Oshawa today, and that's what is happening at the cami plant in Ingersoll, where they're going to be building electric commercial large-scale vans called the Bright Drop, and expanding production of pickup trucks in Oshawa. So I certainly see a lot of positive things there, and I'm glad that GM is going to remain a player, at least for now. That was a company that not long ago had gone bankrupt and needed a government bailout. And
yeah, they also closed down the Oshawa plant entirely.
Yes, they did. But you know, I think it's important to understand why that plant shut down. And that's because the whole industry has been under so much pressure. And why? And why were those vehicles being produced there? Why, what were the dynamics there? It was about union demands for higher wages at a time when government was imposing heavier and heavier restrictions on manufacturing and gasoline powered vehicles. And even now, they're still trying to, there is a government war on the internal combustion engine. So even as this is happening in the US, we're seeing that there are new regulations just announced that had been rolled back by the Trump administration to make it easier. Well, the fuel economy restrictions had been eased, okay, under the Trump administration. But now the Biden administration has increased them again. So new vehicles will have to average 40 miles per gallon by 2026. 40 miles per gallon. The average right now that is required is 24 miles per gallon. So that's a pretty huge increase, okay? So to get there, that's going to increase the cost of vehicles. It's going to mean some vehicles might not qualify to be sold. It's just going to put more pressure on the whole industry on the gas-powered vehicle side. And
I think there's a huge likelihood that we walk out of this without anybody being able to buy an automobile, and the big three in North America going bankrupt entirely, and that this could be a temporary cash grab.
Well, that's the thing that I'm kind of concerned about. You see all this government money flowing in, and then the companies are also dumping their money in, because what choice do they have? They don't have a choice. The government has taken that away. It's like, we are doing this. We're
And
going to make it so hard for people to drive a gasoline powered car, to own one, that they'll have no choice. They have to buy an electric one, but they're going to be so expensive that only certain people will be able to afford them. So that could change. Maybe, maybe you'll get different programs or better economies of scale. Things could change. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that it does play out so that they're affordable and everybody can have them, and there's lots of infrastructure, and there's lots of electricity to charge these things up, and that it's affordable to do so. But man, when I look at it, I'm like, wow, this is a huge challenge.
Well, that I'm trying to think ahead on these companies. These are companies that have not been able to properly innovate in a long time because they've been beaten out by other markets hand over fist for years, like Hyundai, Toyota, all these other manufacturers. They've been kicking the pants off of the big three for years. I think that the big three is dead at this point, and these automobiles they're going to produce, nobody overseas is going to buy them. The American market might buy them if they're affordable enough, but that remains to be seen. But as far as I'm concerned, the big three has been toast for so many years now. Like, you just need to look at the year over year sales. It definitely is not going to Chrysler.
And to me, if you want to see what's happening to our society and where our society is going, where our world is going, where our country is going, you just need to look at the auto industry. It's a case study. It's an example of, it shows you what the path is that the government has put us on. And you can just look at that and go, oh, you can just take that same philosophy, the same approach, and look at everything else they're doing. And it's like, and they've got the pedal to the metal, baby. We are going. It's like they've grabbed a hold of this thing. They've got the power, and they are not going to let this go. They're pushing, and it's a done deal. And because they're beating the crap out of the internal combustion engine, gasoline powered cars, everything that was. They're tearing it all down. That's why that factory had to shut down. It's because they created a situation where the market conditions made that factory unviable. And I'll tell you, when it shut down, I thought, how can that be? How can that plant in Oshawa, how does it make sense for that factory to close? We're in deep trouble if that one's closing. And here's why. That factory in Oshawa is one of the most sophisticated, most modern assembly facilities in the entire world. I've toured that place. That factory has a flex line. You can produce more than one type of vehicle on that assembly line at the same time. When I was there, they were doing, I think, 5 different models. I could be wrong about the number, but they were doing like Camaros, Chevy Impalas, and a few other models all at the same time. And they're all mixed, but the whole system is set up so that all the parts go on and arrive at just the right moment. It was incredible what they've been able to do in that plant. So when they shut it down, this makes no sense to me. But it's because of all the government manipulation and the markets and everything that happens. And it made the plant not viable. Plus all of the union demands for higher wages, which GM couldn't afford, and all of this stuff. So now what are we getting? We're getting, okay, there's a return to the plant, but why? Well, you've got a new government program and new government money going in. And that's not just the free market. And it's not because people are demanding electric vehicles. It's because the government is mandating them in Canada and the United States. They're making it so that you will be forced to do it. They've planned for it. So we're getting a centrally planned auto industry. I hope they plan it properly, and I hope it does well. And and don't get me wrong, I love GM. I love the company. I love the history behind the company. I love what it has done for our countries, for North America, for the world. I love the way that it has improved the standard of living for so many people. General Motors has been and continues to be a great company, just like Ford, just like Chrysler, now Stellantis. These companies have formed the backbone of much of our economy for better part of a century. And we need them to prosper. So I hope the politicians...
We do need them to prosper, but at the end of the day, labor in Canada has gone so crazy. It's not feasible here, and the only reason why we have the automotive industry here is because of government involvement at this point.
Yeah, T-Man says that red truck in the background is not a bright drop. That's correct. That, I believe, is a Silverado in the background. The bright drop is going to be produced down the road, and it's a big van. And on my auto show, at the SST car show, you'll see a report that I have on that. And you can actually, if you go watch the live stream from earlier today, I think there's footage of the bright drop in the full live stream that we put up today at 11 a.m. So just go back and find that in the Maverick News channel or over on the SST Car Show at sstcarshow.com. You can pick up the feed there as well. So you can see it there. And in on our television show this coming weekend on our ABC affiliates, they will, in the U.S., which comes back into Canada on cable systems, you can watch it there. You'll see the bright drop there. It's a big van. And it's electric. Stay home at minus 40. Yeah, well, we'll see how these things stand up in the colder parts of the world, right?
But I think at the end of the day, one of the things that you're pointing to, or big concerns you're pointing to, is this is not a proper economy. It is manipulated by the government. This is not manipulated by the wants of the people. Government involvement inside of this industry, at the end of the day, is going to take the symbol of North America, which I believe to be the automobile. You just have to look at how well we've handled public transportation in this country compared to places like Europe, Asia, like I'm talking Asia, Japan and China. These are places with first class public transit facilities, whether it's rail cars and that sort of thing. That is why North America the automobile is the symbol, and it is always the symbol of independence and freedom. Freedom to go wherever you want, whenever you want, at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's going to be sacrificed in all of this? Are we going to get into a situation where they're going to say, well, you're not allowed to drive your gasoline vehicle on Sundays anymore because you guys wrecked the planet, blah, blah, blah. But my point being is I believe in a society, it's always better when you have personal choice and personal freedom to do things. And it would be a damn shame to lose that.
Well, we largely have, and they are taking your choice away from you because they're going to make you buy an electric car if you want a car at all, and that is coming sooner than most people realize.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if it's even possible to make cars get an average of 40 miles per gallon within 4 years. All new cars coming out have an average of 40 mpg. Now, I think that's probably like a corporate average fuel economy sort of thing, like the old cafe measurements. So there are probably some allowances in there where you can balance off and trade. So if you have a big truck that gets less fuel economy, you, as a corporation or an automaker, you probably get to trade off and say, well, our little economy four banger that seats two people, only, it gets much better fuel economy. So there must be some provisions in there. None of the information that I was able to read today regarding that, though, it fully explained the program. So
Okay.
I'll have to look deeper into it, but that is a big jump from 24 mpg to an average of 40, and they have to hit that now within the next 4 years. That's going to have a major that's going to impact things at showrooms and make it a lot more expensive.
That cost is going to be put on to you, and the cost of developing these things is very expensive.
And you cannot print your way to prosperity by printing a bunch of money, and there's only one taxpayer and there's only one consumer, and you have to understand, everybody needs to understand that all of these expenses are coming out of our pockets, all of them. So all the money the government injected today out of our pockets, all of the money being spent to tool up and create these new vehicles and research them and develop them, all of those costs built into the cost of the vehicles that we're going to end up buying. When the government implements these new regulations for higher fuel economy standards, and that results in higher costs to vehicles, and you go to the shore, you end up paying for that. We all end up paying for it. So every step of the way, we're paying for higher prices for everything that we're doing. And even though the dollar cost of these electric vehicles might appear in the showroom to be comparable to a gasoline-powered vehicle, it's not a true reflection because of all the government money that's being dumped in over on the production side and the distribution side. And I've talked about this before. We'll have to see where it shakes out, man, how it shakes down.
Well, you know what? I know we talked about it before, and you're damn right we're going to talk about it again because I think it is important. And also, you're a car nut compared to a lot of people, which is not even an understatement by any means. Far more than I am, I will grant you that. But it is important because there's nothing wrong with the rugged individualism that we have created for ourselves here in the West and the freedoms that we have. And it's important that the car has brought that to us, and it has worked for a long time. It has worked very well for a long time.
It has. It's transformed our society. It has elevated our standard of living for everyone, and I don't think people fully appreciate that.
And if you don't appreciate that, take the bus, go get your groceries for you and all your family for a week.
Yep.
And carry them home. Tell me how you like that.
Yep.
Have fun.
That's right. It's do you know how hard it is to get to 40 miles per gallon? Do you know what kind of cars get 40 mpg?
I have no idea.
Not very many of them. It's all smaller cars.
Maybe a Fiat Hello Kitty,
a Yaris,
Do they even make those anymore? You know what's kind of funny is we got away from making compact little cars because people just stopped frickin' buying them, which is kind of an interesting thought because they're saying, "Oh, we need more green cars. We need more green cars." They stopped making little cars almost across the board.
Yeah, well, people want SUVs, right?
They want SUVs.
Name me an SUV that gets 40 mpg.
Oh gosh, none of them.
I can't think of any offhand. But everything out there gets around 22 to 26, 24 maybe if you're lucky. Everything. A Civic would get, what's a Civic 2022 Honda Civic fuel economy?
Oh, the 2017 Jaguar XF20D diesel all-wheel drive gets 40 miles per gallon.
So that's the extent you have to go to get that kind of fuel economy. So a Honda Civic, a new one, gets around 30 to 33 if you're lucky mpg.
2017 BMW 330i, 41 miles per gallon. 2018 Honda Fit Sport Manual, 41. 2017 Ford Fiesta hatchback. See, these are all the cars I was just telling you nobody's buying, and they scrapped a bunch of them.
And you know, the thing people also don't realize is that it isn't the size of the vehicle all the time that dictates the fuel economy.
No.
It's really more about the technology that's being used in the drivetrain and how well the engine breathes.
Yes.
And what the engine is made of. Is it like all aluminum or things like that. So you can have I have a full-size Chrysler 300 and it gets about 22, 23 mpg on the highway. And it's a full-size car with a 3.5 liter V6. And I've got a Volkswagen Golf, an 06, which is just like a utility car, really, right? But it only gets about 23 on the highway. And it looks like, people look at it, that's super efficient. No, it's just a workhorse car, really. It doesn't, with that particular motor, it's a 2-liter, and it's been around for a long time, and it's just made to last, but it's not super fuel efficient.
Size is a part of the equation, though, because the bigger the car, the heavier it is. More gas.
But there are more factors involved because it depends on how is the chassis free rolling.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of factors involved. Is it aerodynamic?
Yeah.
What and how much does it actually weigh? Because what kind of materials are they using? Is it all steel? Is there a lot of use of aluminum in it? And the biggest thing especially in highway miles is the technology that goes into the motor. Does it breathe well? Is the head properly designed? Is it combusting the fuel efficiently? Because when you're on the highway, you really only need about a fraction of your power to maintain your highway speed. You probably only need about 10 horsepower to keep you up at about 100K, 60 miles per hour. So you're not using the full. Anyway, enough of that talk. The point is,
yeah, we're getting too technical here.
You're taking people's choice away.
Yes,
and you're not letting the market dictate. This is being driven by people who are convinced that the climate is changing and the world is going to come to an end if we don't get rid of internal combustion engines.
Not only that, it's also being created by fat cat morons who are very loaded and have the ability to alter social engineering or to commit to social engineering on a level that they don't even care about the environment, but it's going to make them a boatload of money.
That's right, because a lot of these, even the auto companies, people running them, I don't think they mind doing this. They're like, you're going to give us
bunch of money,
$259 million, and you, federal government, you're going to give us $259 million? Okay, I guess we'll do it then.
Whenever governments and corporations get in bed together to do a little bit of social engineering, I'm always like, I don't know, I don't like that.
Yeah,
skeptical.
But
very
all
skeptical.
That being said, I will say this as well, because I don't want to be misunderstood. If you're going to buy an electric car, I recommend that you buy a GM or a Ford or even a Chrysler product or maybe even a Hyundai. I would not suggest you buy a Tesla. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but I think GM and Ford in particular deserve your business because they're so important to our economy, and also because they have a full dealer network set up. You can get proper service for them when you do buy them. And you probably there's just a lot of reasons like that.
Would you recommend people buy a hybrid as opposed to a full electric vehicle?
No.
You would say one or the other?
No, because the hybrids are going to be phased out too, because they have internal combustion engines. And when you buy a hybrid, you're driving around mostly on gasoline. And then you've got the cost of the gasoline powered drivetrain plus the electrical components, right? For the electric drivetrain, the cost to fix all of that stuff if you keep it any length of time. Now, if you're just leasing your vehicle, do whatever you want. It doesn't matter at that point, because after a few years, you're just handing it back to the dealer anyway. But if you're buying it and you're going to keep it, for any length of time, no, I wouldn't buy a hybrid. Makes no sense. And right now, I mean, I'm at the point where I never wanted an electric car, but I see that at some point it'll have to happen. I just don't know when. Is now the right time? I don't know.
No, I don't think now
depends,
is the right time. I personally am going to hold off for as long as I possibly can. I personally. I mean, you guys can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
I will.
You know, the thing is, it's like, what's the price of gas going to be? And the price of gas is not being dictated either by the market. It's also being manipulated constantly by government. And we're seeing it right now. And if you think that you're paying anywhere from $1.65 to $2.19 a liter because that's the market, that's not. That's the government. So
I think it'll be immensely difficult in the next 5 years to replace even 20% of the population's gas vehicles. That is a massive undertaking. That number is so big. That number is so big, you wouldn't be able to even fathom it.
Well, Partalian says, buy a Viper.
Damn right. Those are sexy cars, hand-stitched in Detroit, Michigan.
And no longer produced, but if you look around, you can actually still find a few brand new ones at dealerships still for sale. There are just a handful out there. Yes, just a handful.
That costs a fortune.
Yeah, but they're out there, so you can actually find them.
Very beautiful cars. So actually, I'm a product of the 90s, and every boy from the 90s wanted a Viper.
Yeah, Frosty says, Hellcats for everyone. Yeah.
That would be badass.
Yeah, I just, there's something about the rumble. And you know what they do with these electric cars now is they have like a sound system with simulated gasoline powered engine sounds that they pipe through the stereo system.
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can pick the tone that you want and everything.
That's just stupid.
It's sound shaping, Brendan.
It's stupid.
No, it's not.
Dumb.
It's cool. It's like putting hockey cards in the spokes of your bike. Only it's for
that
your
was
electric
stupid
car.
too.
No, that was cool.
How many bloody hockey cards did you go through? You could have been a cajillionaire. You wouldn't even need to do this show anymore. You would just be. You would have taken that kid.
It was worth it.
Your Bobby Orr hockey card that you stuck in the spoke of your bicycle, and now it's toast.
No,
you could have
man,
been a contender, man. You could have been cool.
You know what? You're too young to remember this, Brenda, but I'm going to run something for you right now because this is culture. What I'm about to show you, this is important. And for all you
I am familiar
with
the practice, but yeah.
No, but this is something that you probably have never seen before, and I am going to share something with you that you are never going to forget. It's going to change your life right now. This, Brendan, this is raw power. This is from the 1970s. And for kids who are affluent, who came from upper middle class families and above, they didn't settle for hockey cards in the spokes of their bikes because they had raw power.
Raw power. Your bike can have the cycle sound with raw power. It fits on most handlebars and makes the sound of raw power.
Yeah.
Raw power, the motorcycle sound from Ideal.
Sounds like a hairdryer.
Now that was cool.
Sounds like a hairdryer.
Raw power. And they were way cooler than big wheels. Do you know what a big wheel was?
Yes, I know what a big wheel is.
Yeah. Well, raw power. That was where it was at, baby. I never had one because I was never from a family affluent enough to afford one of those. But boy, I sure wanted one. And today, you think that those hockey cards are worth something? If you have one of those still kicking around, baby, especially if it's in the original box, I bet you find those on eBay going for a primo price. So oh yeah, the green machine. That's right. I remember those too. Matthew says the 80s were amazing. Well, I yearn for yesterday. That's for sure.
I'm curious to know what
You're going to
those are.
tell me they have electric planes pretty soon. They probably will. They have electric drones. I don't know though. Like, I don't know. Can you get enough range with an electric plane? Maybe.
I don't know.
That's,
I do know
you know the problem with an electric plane is the weight of the batteries.
Oh yeah, those things weigh a ton.
Yeah.
I know in a lot of hybrid vehicles in Canada. I used to work for an auto manufacturer. It was built right into the bottom of the car, and there's stuff that you can't do with the car because of where the battery is. And
Loden,
huge.
Loden had a Vega, worst car on the market. Yeah, they put like a Teflon coating in the cylinders of those things, and it wore off, and they burned oil like crazy. It was a terrible idea. Yeah, they were crappy cars. Terrible cars. Yeah, I never had a big wheel either. I didn't. But I did have a big old CCM bike with a banana seat and a sissy bar. Do you know what a sissy bar was, Brendan?
Yes, I know what those are.
Do you really? What's
Yeah.
a sissy bar?
It's those ones that go like this and then.
No, that's not. No, the sissy bar was the big thing. It was like a big giant thing that went around like that on the back of the banana seat.
Oh, it was like
It'd
the
stick
back.
way up in the air, and you put a flag on it if you're really cool.
Ah, okay. I don't know.
At least that's what we called them. Those were the sissy bars. Yeah,
Sissy
low rider
bar.
with a banana seat. Yeah, banana seats were awesome. The problem I had with my CCM bike with the banana seat though was my bell-bottom pants would sometimes get caught in the chain of the bike.
Okay, I've had that happen before.
Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah.
That sucked. And you know what else sucks? Being Pat King. That sucks. You know why? He's still in jail.
Holy gee.
Still in jail. Pat King. He was part of the protest in Ottawa. YouTube social media guy. Had a pretty big following for quite a while, but he's still stuck in jail. Here's the CTV report. He made a court appearance today, and he's still around shopping for lawyers. And he's been in jail now for more than 6 weeks.
What the hell is he doing shopping for lawyers? I'm pretty sure there's like several lawyers in the Ottawa area that have been like specifically, yo, if you're in trouble, you could just like give me a call.
Well, he says he's in the process of shopping for lawyers because due to the importance of the matter, he wants to make sure that he has proper representation. I can kind of understand that. I think it is important for him to have just the right lawyer, given the nature of the charges and the nature of the politics surrounding his incarceration.
Yes, absolutely.
He's going to want to make sure that he has good representation, because if he has a bad lawyer, he might pay a pretty heavy price for what he did or did not do. And it's interesting to see that he's still sitting in jail after all this time for his part in what I believe was, well, a participation in an entirely peaceful demonstration that the government just didn't much care for. You know, in my view, he's a political prisoner.
Absolutely. 100%.
He's facing 10 different charges, including...
Read off the charges, yeah.
Yeah. Intimidation, obstructing police, mischief. And there's some other ones as well. Don't have the full list here.
Man,
and he's in there with a co-accused. The other guy's name is Tyson George Billings. And Billings also appeared in court. But Pat King doesn't have a lawyer actually hired yet to represent him through his upcoming trial. So that's his deal. That's what he's dealing with. So I just thought I should mention that because we want Pat King to at least have people know that he's still in there.
Absolutely.
Because it's important that anyone in jail have their presence known to the public.
Hey, I have not agreed with Pat King on a number of items, mostly little gray area stuff, but man, he does not deserve this. This is way beyond what he plain and simple, this is crooked. What they've done to him.
Well, he wasn't even one of the main organizers.
That's
he
just
was
it.
Circulating around them and but I so and I mean I can't
convoy captain. He was a convoy captain with one of the main groups.
He portrayed himself as someone who was, pretty important
it was
in a
listed
way.
It was listed on the Canada Unity website that he was leading one of the convoys, that he was a captain, so to speak.
Yeah. But I mean, he did come out and say that he wasn't even involved in some of the more important discussions where they were discussing strategy and how they were trying to get meetings with politicians and all of those things.
Yep.
He was more of out in the field trying to help in his own way.
Exactly.
Right. And making a lot of posts and telling people that he had information. I don't know how accurate some of it was or wasn't, but he seemed to be trying to convey information to people through his social media platforms to let them sort of know where he was going, where people were going, what was going on.
Yeah, that's where I would say I disagree with him on a lot of the gray area stuff. So I feel that's a very valid point.
Yeah, Victor says Pat King was a road captain and freedom advocate.
Yeah,
and I'll say this: I don't think he deserves to be in jail for 6 weeks.
Hell no,
without
absolutely
being bailed.
not.
I think that's a shit. That's.
This shows you how gross this country is, man. This is not good. The treatment of Tamara Litch, even with how they dropped the ball on her case, absolutely atrocious and disgusting. Look, all this stuff is starting to add up to stuff. You look at the Pavlovskis, you look at the convoy organizers, the main 3 convoy organizers. You look at them. You look at treatment of certain people, even our friend Liz Valley, right? She is an individual who was charged under the Reopening Act of Ontario and has not received very good treatment from the Crown in either case. Which, I mean, once her case is done and over with, we'll have her on to talk about it in more detail, because I think we need better follow-up on that story, because she's not able to share a lot at this point, but pretty soon we will be able to tell the story about that.
Yeah, Pastor Art Pavlovsky was in jail for 50 days and treated extremely poorly. Ask him on your show to relay the events. Yeah, I'd love to have the pastor on here. We should see if we can get him on. And I'd like to have Jeremy McKenzie back on, because I think the way they've treated him has been terrible.
That's another one.
And I think that the laws that they passed out there in Nova Scotia to prevent and prohibit people from being able to protest in certain areas in order to protect public figures, public servants who have been hiding from the public so that they don't have to answer tough questions. I think those laws are largely misdirected.
Yes. Yes, they are. I don't know where the hell Nova Scotia just came in out of nowhere and was like, well, Quebec is being pretty tyrannical. You figure we could be like more tyrannical than Quebec? And then they did it.
Yeah, Bernadette says, I wonder if it's against his conditions to be on the show. I don't know.
It might be.
That's one of the reasons why I've, with all of these guys, I've been reluctant to, bring them on, because I don't want them to come on here and then do anything that might be a breach of their conditions, because I wouldn't want them to get into more trouble, because they've got enough things to worry about already. And but that being said, I would like to have them on, because it's important for us to cast light on what is really happening. and get to the truth of a lot of these, right? Yeah, and Pastor Henry Hildebrandt, Church of God, all these churches targeted. Just disgusting. And there's no question, it's not about health, it's about compliance. It's about making people submit to the state. Well, that's not the way it goes in a free society. At least it's not supposed to. And that's what we used to have. We used to have a free society.
And I think it's very understated, at least not to Tamara Litch, but I think in the mainstream media, it was never discussed enough that the bail judge for Tamara Litch was, I think Justice Julie Bourgeois. She had very evident and clear ties to Justin Trudeau, which should have been an immediate recusal. She should have recused herself immediately. Because I found out about that, and that was absolutely atrocious.
Well, friends, if you can support our work, you can do that by donating at freedomreporters.com. You can click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions and help us out that way. If you want to support us, you can also subscribe to our channels, and that helps get the message out as well. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our videos when we post, as we did earlier today at 11 a.m. when we went live from the news conference in Oshawa to bring everyone the news about the huge investment in the auto industry that is bringing new jobs to Canada, and high-paying jobs too, I might add. So, at least for now, that's a good thing for the communities there, and we hope that does translate into long-term prosperity for the entire country.
Well, we did have a great show this evening. We covered some silly topics. I mean, we did touch quite a bit on COVID there, so hopefully this episode does not get deleted. If you did not watch that part yet, you can go back. It is rather quite hilarious. Rick discusses, we found out what Rick's pronouns are today, so that was also very interesting. And I thought it was also a very good idea that we examined the numbers on COVID and how much more cases we have now than we did before. So those deep studies are always good to reflect and look at the past. We also examined claims of war crimes coming out of Ukraine, and had a moment to talk automobile industry a little bit, and we followed up with Pat King. Tune in tomorrow. We'll definitely be checking in on where the James Top is at. So we'll have to check in with him. I don't think we did that today, but we'll do that tomorrow. And I'm your co-host, Brennan Kennedy. It's great to be back here on this Monday evening, and I'm looking forward to being back tomorrow. So I'll see you then.
And I'm Rick Walker, also here on the Maverick News Channel. We are the Freedom Reporters, and if you're looking for raw power, you'll find it right here again tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Catch you all on the flip side. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a slate.